Alright, three, two, one, walk. Oh, joy. The other day I was mulling over something, and it seems like thinking. We almost tend to believe that you can look at a thing or you can see a thing and dwell on a thing once, and then it's gone, right? It's out of sight, out of mind. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think thinking is a lot like breathing, in that you can do it intentionally, but you will do it unintentionally, right? So all the stuff you see on a day-to-day basis, everything you observe, everything you dwell upon, everything you do, all of this stuff kind of goes into a holding cell and is on a constant loop in the background of your mind. And every now and then, your brain will just pop up an image, pop up a thought, pop up an emotion, whatever. It's not like you do this or you experience this once and then that's it. So maybe just a bit of advice from someone very old and very wise. Careful what you take in, because whether you like it or not, it will come up again eventually. Anyways, Sydney Watson, we're going to look at here first. The Spectacular Collapse of Woke Hollywood by Sydney Watson. Oh, and I think it was around Christmas, I assume. Maybe she just had it up after Christmas. One month ago, so yes. Glad she's not some sort of anachronistic harpy. For the record, I like keeping Christmas lights up after Christmas.
Okay, this one was actually inevitable. Hi, my name is Sydney. Welcome back to hell. I saw a couple comments recently from people saying that they're a little upset that I'm not referencing the fact that we're on our hell gondola, but rest assured.
Does hell have gondolas? I know in Greek mythology there would be the river Styx and whatnot, and that was a thing, right? Do you have to get over the river Styx in order to get into hell, or was it just a thing where...
Sure, guys, you're always on the boat. You can't get off. You're not allowed. On a completely unrelated note to anything, when I was picking this little fun screensaver for this video, it made me so sad because living in Texas, it's constantly always hot, and I just want a Christmas that looks like this. Why can't I have you?
Yeah, Texans, all those people down south are basically spoiled. That's why they get into all the trouble, right? People up north, we don't get into all that kind of crap. We have winter. Helps cool the blood. All those southerners with their protests and crap. It's too cold to protest up here.
In some personal news, I am currently fostering another Irish setter right now who I'm sure I'm going to show you because he's a really cute boy. Say hello to him. Okay. Say hello. Say hi to the channel. Say, my name is Liam and I am a boy. Last housekeeping thing before we get into this video. Today is the last day that you can get my emerald green tea on my tea website at 50% off using the code We Don't Waste. You can still get New York breakfast for the next couple days, but this...
I'm being catty as I'll get out, but I feel like she should choose a nicer font, so it feels cold and heartless. Like winter.
Sale will be ending by the end of this week. Like I already mentioned in a couple other videos, I don't know if and when I'm going to be restocking the emerald green tea, so if you like it, now is probably the last chance that you have to get it. Also, tea makes a really great Christmas gift, so you know, consider that as well. Okay, let's do the video. Do you guys remember that really weird period of time where it seemed like Hollywood thought the entire country, nay, the entire world was waiting breathlessly for its next sermon on racism and trans rights and how Trump...
It's kind of interesting. It's like a shade variation that goes kind of a lighter as it gets outward. I don't know if this one's supposed to be black then?
is literally Hitler.
Trump is Hitler.
Trans people will always exist and we love you forever and ever.
I do too, because that's apparently all we got to
Preachy Hollywood.
hear about from these people for years and years and years. I'm pretty sure it's been like a decade now, hasn't it? Time really does seem to fly when you're being lectured by champagne socialists. The lecturing was to the...
Well, I think that's one of the biggest things that, like, maybe it shouldn't matter who's saying it, but I do think it kind of does, at least if it's happening for some extended period of time, and you're being preached at by probably the most morally decadent, degenerate individuals in the country or in the world, it kind of wears on one. And to the point where you're almost like, okay, yes, there are people who can maybe lecture me about this. This group of people, you're not one of them. You shouldn't be lecturing anyone about this type of stuff. You live the type of lifestyle that everyone would mostly dream of, and yet you're doing jack squat about all of that. Like, yeah. You know, beyond saying a word now and then. That's why they put on the buttons, because it saves them having to, fiddle with their bank account numbers.
The extent that I don't want to watch new movies anymore. And I'm pretty sure that I hate all celebrities all of the time.
I understand nothing.
For years and years, we've had to sit through so much Hollywood posturing and pontificating in the form of both celebrity opinions and the political messaging ham-fisted into basically every piece of entertainment.
Stand up for justice!
To stand up for justice!
Stand up for America!
To stand up for America!
Oh, for the one, I don't like lipstick. I was just thinking, you could probably make some sort of saying about that. Virtue signaling, just as good and doesn't take any money.
Trump is not a legitimate president!
Is that you make a movie that is a love letter to women of color, have the chance to see your movie.
It does feel like almost California is in a category, like in its own bubble that's been facilitated by the sheer amount of, like, money that goes into it, and this type of idiocy perpetuated by these actors and entitled little individuals is something that couldn't really exist in any sort of real world scenario. That place rots people from the inside out.
And review your movie.
So we're all having a baby. Holy shit. I'm gonna be a dad.
Please just shut up. I'm going to be your dad. Personally, I'm glad that you think that you're a they, them, and are probably sterilizing yourself. But what is absolutely hilarious, at least in my opinion, is that somehow, some way, this entire culture of celebrity posturing has unceremoniously died. The same celebrities who spent the better part of a decade screaming at really anyone who...
Here's a question. Who made that type of thing actually, like, popular? This feels like at one point that was very much not necessarily the norm, that you would really comment. Who's the jackass that actually started doing it and made other people want to do it?
has moderately right-of-center opinions.
Maybe it's just with the rise of the internet, too. Maybe that facilitated part of it, because, at times there was, like, before the internet, before Facebook, before social media in general, it feels like you got your news from actual newspapers or news stations, so it was filtered to you more so rather than like the sheer volume of information being thrown around on social media or stuff like that. So maybe there just wasn't as much of a necessity for it. They could pick and choose what they wanted to feed the media rather than the machine that it became, social media.
Has suddenly discovered that nobody cares what they think, and that screaming actually costs them money, fans, and careers. And let's be real, the proof is everywhere. I have no idea what I'm doing with my hand right now. Please look away. In September 2024, Pharrell Williams said
Strike a pose.
That he is annoyed by celebrities trying to tell others how to vote. During this interview, he said, "I'm one of them people who says, 'What the heck? Shut up. Nobody asked you.'" He also called these celebrities self-righteous, which,
there's also another weird thing. it does feel like artists almost unilaterally skew in a certain direction when it comes to politics. And I don't know what exactly is that, because they would tend to skew, I think, quite liberal, quite democratic or socialist or communist or whatever. And I don't know if it has to do with a certain type of idealism or whatever. Because for the most part, they tend to skew in that direction. Maybe except for the ones who have actually been through stuff.
I can't disagree there. In July,
Maybe I just feel like there's almost a stereotype of like the melodramatic drama kid who idealizes everything and who knows how the world should work and is eager to tell you about it. I don't know.
2025, comedian Jay Leno said late-night TV comedians have become too politicized and that they risk losing half the viewing audience by cozying up to one side or the other.
I read that there was an analysis done of your work on The Tonight Show for the 22 years, and that you're...
Okay, so is this his... I would gotten the idea. It was part of a joke I heard once that he was really into getting cars. I'm assuming this is his garage, maybe? That's some cool stuff. Oh, that one. Pretty nice. That one's interesting.
jokes were roughly equally balanced between going after Republicans and taking aim at Democrats.
Well,
did you have a strategy, or like was that?
Well, it's funny to me when I got hate letters from Miss Lyon, you and your Republican friends. Well, Miss Lyon, I hope you and your Democratic buddies are happy over the same joke. And I go, well, that's good. So that's how you get a whole audience. Now you have to be content with half the audience because you have to give your opinion. And to me, I like to think that people come to a comedy show to kind of get away from the things, you know, the pressures of life, wherever it might be. And I love political humor, don't get me wrong, but it's just what happens was people...
I think there's a point to be made to that. I think it's just a matter of skill sometimes, because I feel like there are people in Hollywood who are so inept that they could make a joke about the most innocuous thing in the world and they would still tick someone off. And then there's other people who are very eloquent, who can make a joke about the most divisive topic in the world, and they would still make people laugh and still make people think about it because they're just good at it. And maybe there's a little bit of a deficit of that sort of skill or eloquence in Hollywood at this point.
Wind up cozying too much to one side or the other.
In November 2025, Jennifer Lawrence, who was once extremely politically outspoken, routinely attacking Trump during his first term.
Well, to be fair, she kind of has to, because, you know, they're calling the one side Nazis, and she's blonde-haired and... Same with Taylor Swift.
Gave an interview where she essentially said
Sydney Sweeney, I don't think she's actually blonde, from what I would have heard.
We've learned with election after election that...
To be fair, I don't know if either of these are blonde, or if Taylor Swift or... Jennifer Lawrence are blonde either. They might be dyeing their hair as well.
Celebrities make no difference in who people vote for.
I don't really know if I should. I think, like, the first Trump administration was so wild, and just how can we let this stand? Like, I felt like I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off. But as we learned...
That is a very apt metaphor.
Election after election, celebrities do not make a difference whatsoever on who people vote for.
Celebrities could make a difference, but standing up with a pin on and saying, hey, I think this is what should happen, or hey, I really feel deeply for people in such and such a situation, when you have a vast surplus of money that you could put towards the problem. Yeah, not being racist is not exactly a substitute for being a good person. That's clippable. I'm going to clip that.
And so then what am I doing? I'm just sharing my opinion on something that's going to just add fuel to a fire that's ripping the country apart.
It's almost like getting paid boatloads of money to play pretend has absolutely no impact on the real world. It's crazy. I can't help but wonder if the reason why a bunch of these celebrities are jerks is because they don't get very good sleep. Which is why they too should hear about the sponsor of today's video.
That was nice. That's a nice transition.
Beam. Alright, you are all going to come along with me while I make my Dream Sleep Hot Chocolate in preparation for sleeping. I admit that Dream has become fully integrated.
I was just thinking of that song. Oh, these are not black. Kind of cool though. The way she decorated them. I was thinking of the Willy Wonka one. Come with me.
In my nighttime routine, and I'm genuinely so glad that this company keeps sponsoring my channel so I can keep preaching to you
now
all
they're different. This irks me. Keep your nails the same.
about how good this stuff is. And once again, because I apparently talk about Dream so much in my personal life, one of my friends came over recently, took one of the Dream bags that I have to try it, and then she actually told me today how surprised she is by how well it works, which I don't know why you're surprised. I told you. So when I say that I've converted basically everybody around me, I am not joking. Dream is awesome because it tastes amazing, and there are so many flavors to choose from. And it's also full of great ingredients like reishi, L-theanine, magnesium, and even melatonin, or you can get melatonin-free options if you're not so keen on melatonin, so that's nice too. And for me, I really like...
I personally don't like fiddling with melatonin just because it's... yeah, I just don't like... I don't like the idea of having to have something to actually go to sleep. Because I feel like it can maybe mess with your body's like natural production of those things.
Like Dream because I don't feel groggy when I wake up. So as you can see, I drink it about 45 minutes to an hour before bed, depending on how tired I already am, and I find myself just getting calmer and calmer until it's lights out. I also love that my little Dream kit came with this little foamy mixer guy here, which I use all the time and actually comes very much in handy. So if you are ready to give this awesome sleep aid a try, then shop Beam's Black Friday sale with up to 50% off for a limited time. This is Beam's biggest sale of the year and officially the best deal that I have shared on this channel. So click the link in the description or go to shopbeam.com/SydneyW. No discount code needed.
Coked out drug dealer. Just saying it. Look at her at.
because all of the codes are auto-applied at checkout. The biggest recent example that I'm sure you have all heard of by now is important because it was more of a non-answer. It was the antithesis of political lecturing. It was just silence. In late November 2025, Sydney Sweeney was once again lambasted online because she refused to say anything at all about her controversial jeans commercial. You guys know the one that I'm talking about. Why a double entendre about a hot girl having good genes is controversial is still a mystery to me. Perhaps this culture of uggos don't like having that rubbed in their face. During an interview with GQ, the interviewer asked Sweeney about the American Eagle jeans saga. She basically replied, "When I have something to say that people need to hear, they'll hear it." I don't remember the direct quote, but it was something along those lines.
The criticism of the content, which was basically that maybe specifically in this political climate, like white people shouldn't joke about.
I've also heard that the notion that these interviewers are not exactly they're interviewers. Their whole point is to get something that is spicy for their own outlet or whatever, right? That is kind of their glitch. So they don't really, there's no symbiotic relationship between these guys and the actors. Their point is literally to catch the actor saying something that is astonishing or weird or just provocative in the worst way possible. Like they are there to get clippable moments out of the actors. So yeah, I would be if I were an actor, I think I would either not give interviews or be very, very careful about, like, maybe train your actors with some sort of media literacy junk.
Genetic superiority.
I think Disney actually does some of that, maybe, but yeah, I don't know.
Like, that was kind of like the criticism, broadly speaking. And since you are talking about this, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that specifically.
I think that when I...
Specifically? It's a nice inflection.
I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
Were you surprised by the reaction?
I did a Gene ad.
Seeing people losing their minds over Sydney Sweeney wasn't terribly surprising, given how much of a fuss she kicks up any time she's mentioned. Her non-apology, her lack of groveling, obviously made these people even angrier, because that is the one thing that they want in these situations. Groveling and penance. But Jennifer Lawrence's comments and Sydney Sweeney's non-response were both really interesting in their own right, because I think that they really do signal a bit of a sea change happening in Hollywood. One where actors, actresses, studios, and everyone in between have started to realize people do not care whatsoever about leftist.
This was another one come up a while back. Or Keira Knightley, I think, was asked. I think she was doing something for Harry Potter, and someone had asked her about the trans thing, and she kind of did like a half laugh, and it gave like the most British answer ever, I think. Something like, "Oh, I'm very sorry that the trans people feel that way. Hadn't thought of it," or something like that. It's like
politics, but more specifically, their leftist politics. And more importantly,
how do you feel about afros? I don't know how I feel about them really. They're just kind of they're not my favorite hairstyle. Well, it depends who's wearing them too. They're too poofy. It's like those giant, ridiculous hats that people sometimes wear.
That we don't want politics in the media that we consume at all. I do not want...
When did afros become a thing, even? Is that some sort of hipster, like, not hipster, hippie 60s type of thing? Is that when that became a thing? I feel like it wouldn't have been, like, turn of the century or anything like that. I feel like it would have come along during maybe the 60s or something like that.
Want your gender or diversity quotas. I want storylines that make sense. And shirtless men running around punching holes in walls. It's not that much to ask. As most of us with eyeballs have observed for years and years, it seems that in Hollywood for the longest time, the only acceptable political stance was to be a progressive, to be a leftist. For years, the industry has operated with a simple...
Which is actually... Well, it's actually kind of weird, because I think for a long time out in Hollywood or along the West Coast there were like a ton of army bases and stuff like that. So I don't know at what point it really shifted into this type of Hollywood thing. Maybe it was just after like it became such a popularized industry or whatever. Not for sure. Not for sure.
Simple unspoken rule. If you have a platform, you must use it to advance progressive politics, or risk being branded racist or bigoted or worse. And this rule has played out in countless ways. We have had actors and actresses making red carpets into protest stages, which has just been insufferable. Award speeches became less about acceptance of the actual award and more about proclaiming one's political opinions. This happened so much that even 2020 Ricky Gervais dedicated an entire speech of his own to calling celebrities out, accusing them of not even knowing what the real world is like.
Well, you say you're woke, but the companies you work for, I mean, unbelievable. Apple, Amazon, Disney. If ISIS started a streaming service, you'd call your agent, wouldn't you? So, if you do...
I was just... What was I thinking about? Oh, yeah. Didn't Disney shrink a number of people of the African-American persuasion on their posters? Not technically just African persuasion. I think some of them were British, so like I'm pretty sure on the Star Wars one they had shrunk Finn. I'm pretty sure on Black Panther they had done something. They were doing a little bit of philandering with that poster. Yeah. So their morals are rock solid until they come into conflict with their dollar amounts.
You win an award tonight. Don't use it as a platform to make...
I feel like Hollywood is a lot maybe like politicians, and they don't really have principles. They have positions that they hold for one reason or another. Most of the time, it doesn't necessarily have to do with morality. They have positions they espouse because of some sort of advantage. And they'll be willing to betray those if the advantage swings in the other direction. I mean, it's New York Minute, man.
political speech, right? You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. So, if you win, right, come up.
Did Greta Thunberg actually drop out? Because I wouldn't have... You would have thought of her as being kind of the college-educated whatever. I know at a very young age, I think she was kind of put up in front of people saying, hey, listen to this. Say, how dare you? You've stolen my childhood. But, like, I guess I don't know exactly a lot about her. We should look that up sometime.
Accept your little award, thank your agent and your God, and fuck off. Okay? So...
Movies, television shows, really all sorts of entertainment became places where ideologues could shove their political agendas, giving us insane storylines, unbelievable characters.
You know, I thought it would have been like a hilarious thing if someone was going to redo Star Wars. Just have Luke wake up one morning as a young Luke and be like, huh, that was a really weird dream. Just retcon all of Rise of the Skywalker, all of the past, all of the new movies, just retcon all the way back to you having Luke and Kylo Ren training as, you know, Jedi and Padawan, and follow that story. You could maybe even involve some of the other characters at some point, but just redo it as that. That'd be like the coolest retcon ever.
And that's just the basic stuff. That's not even the worst of it. It also gave us a bunch of stupid dialogue like this.
Well, here's the thing, Bruce. I'm great at controlling my anger. I do it all the time. But when I'm
except when you need to trauma dump on people?
Called in the street, when incompetent men explain my own area of expertise to me, I do it pretty much every day, because if I don't, I will get called emotional or difficult, or I might just literally get murdered.
What's that?
See, I feel like a dude wouldn't maybe necessarily even be able to tell you when and where and how they control their temper. The fact that you can recall it, never mind.
Let's puzzle.
That was like the most ostentatious rant that she ever went on, though. Like, that is kind of because I do it infinitely more than you. Talking to a guy who's literally been through wars, who's lost the love of his life, who literally tried to commit suicide, and has dealt with this crap his whole life. He's been hunted by the military. Like, it's kind of like walking into a, you know, oh goodness, like a Jewish conglomeration of people who survived the Holocaust and say, you know, I've really had a hard life. I lost my girlfriend the other day. I lost my cell phone isn't working. Like, yeah, good for you. Maybe you obviously your problems are valid and you can go complain about them to your friends, but read the room a little bit.
Is he or they with us?
I need you to fix his suit.
The suit is literal perfection.
It will be. When it fits a woman.
You serious? Again, how do these people exist? I still feel like there's some sort of weird bubble that happens when they get into California and into that environment that allows them to think about this sort of crap in the way they do.
Well, there you guys have it. Now you've seen it. Ruby Rose's single facial expression. The absolute crap show that was Batwoman walked so that the Acolyte could run. The term silence is violence, which was basically adopted by Hollywood, in a lot of ways became a weird, enforceable social contract for people in the industry. And those who didn't loudly adhere to it were fired, boycotted, and publicly shamed, like Chris Pratt, Gina Carano, and Zachary Levi. Side note, leftists also got attacked by their own here, like our girl Jennifer Lawrence, who also got flamed for not talking about issues in the Middle East early enough. I'm not kidding. Former industry people routinely explain that going against the
Foreshadowing. We're gonna have something to say about that. I promise I will try not to do anything like really goodness, what's the word? I'm looking for like conflicting Controversial. I will try not to do anything controversial for a while now, but
The progressive grain is actually career suicide.
our history segment is going to be on that subject.
And simply remaining apolitical was no longer an option. Neutrality itself was recast as a sort of like moral failing. But now that contract has been torn up.
Hollywood is just spineless, en masse. And it really felt like, oh, this is a really clear indication that we're not the cool club anymore.
In the wake of Donald Trump's election
Based.
in 2024, and I guess also this sort of cultural pendulum swing in the direction of the right wing, I guess, something really interesting has happened, and that is this political arm of celebrity culture has gone almost completely silent. The same voices that once left...
No, they don't know what opinions to have yet. You have to see where everything lands before the... It does feel like a lot of human history can be boiled down to trying to keep power away from the worst sorts of people, or to pry them away from it once they have it. It feels like, and I've said this before, the second you get a movement that's popular, the worst sorts of people will flock to it. And I feel like that's bound to happen. Like if the right or maintains power for any length of time, I'm going to guess a lot of these people are going to start saying, oh, him hawing about like, oh no, I was never a part of that. I was like, they're going to change their positions, not principles. They don't have principles, to a more advantageous standing, to either neutral or actually, starting to slide a little bit right. Well, maybe, yeah.
Lectured Middle America on its backwardness have now realized that absolutely nobody cares about what they have to say about anything. During the 2024 election, stars like Taylor Swift...
That's actually a good place to leave it. What was that?
About anything. During the 2020 same voices that once lectured Middle America on its backwardness have now realized that absolutely nobody cares about what they have to say about anything. During
that's the place to leave it, okay? No one cares what they have to say about anything. Well, at least if it doesn't come to acting. There are very few actors that I actually care to listen to about subjects that don't involve acting. I think Stephen Fry is one of them. I don't agree with a lot of what he says, but he has a nice way of saying it, nice enough that I would probably listen to him. I like Rowan Atkins. I don't even necessarily know about Zachary Levi or Gina Carano. Maybe they're okay. I guess I haven't really listened to them a lot. Yeah. Or Chris Pratt, for that matter. But there are very few times when I want to hear an actor talk about stuff that isn't really acting. Because most of them are, like, when it comes to anything else, they know diddly squat, in my humble opinion. Anyways, moving on.
Even though I'm out of college, I still do a ton of writing for work. Like,
to clarify that, All right, no. To clarify, that last video was by Sydney Watson. Something about Hollywood being weird or something. Anyways, moving on, we have a video by Healthy Gamers.
Content planning, responding to emails or social posts.
All right, chat, today we're going to talk about how to stop zoning out. And the basic mistake that most people make is they think of zoning out as a problem to be solved, which it sort of is and we're going to do. But there's one main thing you need to understand.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of a problem. You have to be able to focus on a thing long enough to make it worthwhile. Or to do it effectively, right? The notion of jumping around like a social butterfly is not exactly advantageous a lot of the time.
Zoning out is your brain's way of trying to increase cognitive resources. So if we look at zoning out, first thing is that everybody does it. And we do it when we are tired, when we are overwhelmed, when we are bored. So if I'm studying for a test and I feel cognitively fatigued and I take a...
See, I guess the notion of zoning out as opposed to getting distracted, I don't know if those are exactly the same thing, if you would say they're the same thing in any case. In one case you're just kind of, or something like that, versus in another case you're kind of actually jumping to something else.
break or I zone out for a little while, when I zone back in, I'm able to study. The problem, though, is that a lot of people get into this cycle of constantly zoning out, zoning back in a way that's really unproductive. And this is something that I really sort of dove into with a patient of mine who had ADHD that was getting worse. Now, this is something that sounds really common, but is actually very unusual because ADHD is one of the illnesses that should not really ever get worse. And I know that sounds weird, but let me explain. So ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder, which means that it is a disorder related to the way that our brain develops. So if you look at the trajectory of ADHD...
So it's kind of locked in place when you're a kid more so?
Over time, someone's brain develops in a particular way. They either have mild, moderate, or severe ADHD. And if anything, as we get older, ADHD should improve. About 1 in 5 people who are diagnosed with ADHD is...
It's a little bit of a lexical ambiguity there. Should improve. I'm assuming he means get less severe, presumably.
Kids will end up growing out of it as their brain matures
obviously.
As adults. But I had a patient who came into my office who said, my ADHD is getting worse over time, which doesn't make any sense because ADHD is a disease of how the brain is actually wired. And like we just said, it should be getting better. Now, there are things that can temporarily alter your ADHD if you don't...
I would feel like actually shorts or TikToks would actually maybe be a good example of things that would actually mess with that, because I think I would have seen studies on this thing that type of medium can really mess with your attention span, just because it's like constant dopamine, and if you don't have that, if you have something that comparative to that might be better for you, but doesn't have that type of like that exact cycle of constant rush, constant dopamine, constant whatever, that you might have a hard time focusing on it or something.
Sleep very well, if you just went through a breakup or you're stressed out in some way, sure, we can have temporarily fluctuations, but fundamentally ADHD is a diagnosis that should be relatively static or improve over time. And so as I started working with this person, we tried a couple of different things like increasing his medication, but even if increasing his medication allows him to
throw drugs at the no, I guess
focus today.
Maybe there's other things involved. I just feel like as a general rule, like taking more medication is not an ideal solution, perhaps.
It doesn't explain the trajectory of his attention span. And that's when we had to start thinking outside of the box. And we dug into this idea of zoning out. And by the way, if you guys want more of these out-of-the-box solutions, definitely check out the ADHD guide, which is basically like my exploration of things that work for patients that aren't a part of...
You ever see, there's a South Park clip I had seen, where they were talking about how they fixed ADHD back in the 19... whatever it was. It's hilarious. Worth a look sometime.
Standard evidence-based treatment. As I was trying to figure out what was going on with my patient, I stumbled into something called attention restoration theory. So there's I think a couple of Dr. Kaplan's who sort of made an interesting observation that when we go out into nature, we tend to zone out. So as they started to explore this idea of zoning out in nature, they discovered a couple of important things. The first is that when we zone out, it appears to restore some of our cognitive functions.
Hold on, I'm going to check this out. All right. Art proposes that individuals benefit from the chance to be away from everyday stresses, experience expansive spaces and contexts, extent, engage in activities that are compatible with our intrinsic motivations, and critically experience stimuli that are softly fascinating. I just realized I've been walking around like a numpty with my shirt inside out. Okay, sorry, unrelated. Compatible with our intrinsic motivations, critically experience stimuli that are softly fascinating. This combination of factors encourages involuntary or indirect attention and enables our voluntary or direct attention capacity to recover and restore.
function.
Interesting.
So when I'm studying for a test, like I said earlier, and I zone out, when I zone back in, I'm...
Sorry, it just occurred to me that my face is going to be kind of covering this corner.
able to start working on the studying again. The second thing that they noticed is that when we zone out, we seem to be dealing with unresolved issues. So the more stuff I have inside me, the more likely I am to zone out. Now, y'all may have experienced this in a very negative way. If you went through a breakup or something social is going on, or you feel really hurt, you'll notice that when you try to focus on a task, your brain will essentially zone out and you will start thinking about other stuff, right? Your brain will start trying to solve other problems. And that's how we discover what the role of zoning out is. It does these two fundamental things. And some aspects of attention restoration theory have basically been debunked, but subsequent
attention restoration theory, that's kind of interesting. I should look into that sometime.
Research has basically shown us that these two elements are why we zone out. It is a way for our brain to cognitively recover some RAM. So you can kind of think about this like even a timeout in sports, right? So if I'm playing a game of basketball and I take a timeout, I need some time to catch my breath. And when I go back on the court, I'm able to play a little bit better. The second consistent finding is that when we zone out, we are usually dealing with internal and emotional stuff. And when I was working with my patient, this is the way that we approached zoning out. Not that it's a problem to be solved, but we tried to understand that, okay, when you zone out, your brain is trying to accomplish a couple of tasks. And the more that we focus on accomplishing those tasks outside of the way that your brain kind of does it, the better off you will be. Because essentially what starts to happen is we get into this cycle where we're trapped in zoning out. And the way that this works, it's a bit complicated, but this is essentially what we kind of stumbled into. So the first thing to understand is that your mind keeps track of all the tasks that you have to do. That is how it is able to remind you that you need to do something. Now, there's a basic problem here because the more things your mind is keeping...
I'm sorry, I should have more to add here, but I just don't.
...track of, the less cognitive RAM you have to actually solve a problem. And
well, that is actually an important point to be made, that I think quite often, unless, like, if you have some sort of really loud internal dialogue going on, it's best maybe to, like, just take a break from work or whatever and try to figure out that stuff so you can do both of them effectively. Because a lot of time, if I have something going on in my ear and I'm also thinking about something else, it's almost just turn off the earbud, just turn off the music, whatever you're listening to, just turn off the podcast or whatever, and focus on the one thing until you can solve that. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to focus on either of them, right? And to be fair, like if you're zoning out, as he says, or if you're being distracted by this other thing, it feels like that other thing is kind of almost superseding the thing that you're doing at the time in importance. So maybe you should just take a break, go focus on that for a little bit, and then come back and you can actually be efficacious in your duties.
What's happening with my patient, and this may resonate with y'all, is let's say they were working on 5 tasks, one of which was a personal task, which they didn't even think of as a task that they were trying to solve. They had gone through a sort of a breakup, or they were on a break, they were on a separation. They'd been on a separation for about a month, and they were like not sure exactly what's happening in this relationship. They weren't sure if they should move on or they should wait or whatever. And so anytime they're sitting down for a particular task, let's say they're focusing on task number 1, their mind gets tired, right? Because it has all of this stuff in the subconscious, and then it switches to task number 2. But then our mind starts working on...
It's kind of weird that it feels like computers are like a really great example for a simile of human experience to some extent, how they function, how they... Like, there seems to be a lot of, like, similes you can make there, in any case. Where you can compare one to the other and it almost makes sense in your head or something. I don't know. Maybe we're more like computers than we think. Just a really, really fancy biological computer. Now, to be fair, I don't know how much I believe in the notion of AI or that we're going to create something that's actually sentient. Just to clarify.
Task number 2 for a little bit, and then it gets tired, and it switches to task number 3, and then...
I guess, sorry, with reference to what I was talking about before, AI, etc. I tend to think we're more of a multifaceted creation than perhaps we know, and there's maybe stuff that's mystical slash magical slash out of sight a little bit, unseen, perhaps more so. So yeah, I'm not confident in our ability to actually produce something that's like a workable sentient creature.
As it starts working on task number 3, it gets tired and it switches to task number 4. And then as they are moving between tasks, eventually thoughts about this separation.
You wonder, like, what governs the prioritization of, like, if you're being tired to whatever task it jumps.
And that they're going through will always creep up. So they were sort of existing in this place where even if they spent an hour working, they didn't actually get anything done.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
And this is when we discovered a couple of very common principles that they had tried from the productivity, like, podcast circuit, actually seem to be sabotaging them. The first is people will say, just get started. And if you just get started, that's the most important thing. And the second thing that people will say is that, okay, you should just take small steps. Just take small steps, just take small steps, just take small steps. But what we actually found was that just getting started and...
So just on the face of it, both of those seem to be good things. But, like, I guess in this particular scenario, maybe it's not.
Just taking small steps ended up with them sort of taking a couple of steps over here, and then they'd get distracted, and a couple of steps over here, and then they'd get distracted. And they would spend an hour trying to just get started, and they would get started again and again and again, and do a tiny little thing again and again.
So, I guess that's the problem a little bit. Like, it just feels like if you have some sort of unresolved thing going on in your head, either find some sort of job where you can actually do both, where it's very simplistic, and you can actually work on this other thing while you're doing it, but don't do anything, like, super complex that will conflict with that. Right? It just do one or do the other. Don't do both. Don't try to do both at the same time. You're not going to be able to... So, yeah, there's a saying from Parks and Rec or something. Never half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing or something. A little bit vulgar, but it applies here, right? Don't try to do two things ineptly. Try to do one thing well, in a way that brings it to a reasonable solution. Anyways, that is Why Zoning Out is a Hidden Skill by Healthy Gamers. You can go check that out if you want. Alright, let's go! A little bit of gaming. I might chop down that last segment, actually. Well, I don't know, we'll see. We'll see how I feel. Oh, good. Alright. I was doing a different game. And this is the original one. This one is like the DLC is some sort of stupid namby-pamby eco-friendly crap. It's not even really a villain. Just a lady trying to save the world from global warming. Stupid. Alright. Let's try this one.
One of the highlighted schemes is near one of your criminal networks. You can send minions to complete the scheme now, or you can search the globe for an alternative.
Okay, well, going to need some power before that happens. Was this the orientation I'd wanted? So I wanted to be able to see in there. And they enter from there. Alright. Yeah, well, get the stuff built. Get already. Okay, do it. I don't even have a... Oh, yeah, I do have one. Sorry.
Optional objective complete.
Oh, come on. Get the power back on. Almost there. All right, now. So that's the one. All right, huzzah! Now, let's go there. Oh, so this one literally starts out on the top floor instead of the floor 1 next to the basement. All right. Do I have a barracks? I have a barracks. All right. Oh, dang it. All right. Good enough for government work. Use bit.
A scheme has succeeded.
Your minions have kidnapped a specialist. Once they're in a holding cell, you can choose to interrogate them.
Let's reduce the heat. No. That's another way to do it. Idea of a thing.
New optional objective available.
I discovered that I need to stop talking to myself so much when I'm on these things. Normally you think of yourself, you're generally pretty self-restrained when you're in front of people, but in this case it's almost like you're not in front of people because you're on this. Alright, knock through that. So much space for some stuff. So I feel like by the time I actually get to the point where I actually want to build a layer or something like that, it'll probably be to the point where I can get to a different floor. So that'll probably be better. And I think this would actually, like if you go to an external view, I guess I don't know, maybe it's the same kind of all the way around. The floors would be the same.
At last, something worthy of my skills.
Yeah.
An intruder has been captured.
Select the holding cell and then select escort prisoner. After that, select the interrogation device. For now, that's the interrogation chair.
I think I've been kind of going for maybe this orientation or so. Better. Let's go like that.
Salaries paid.
Guards are important to the security of your lair, but can disappear quicker than a dry martini. Build 2 guard trainers so that your minions can top up their wilting numbers post-haste.
Alright. Guard trainers. Yep.
Once constructed, we can use the minion training screen to request our minions start their training to become fully fledged guards. Won't that be nice?
Yes, very nice. Alright. Capacitors. Reinforced doors, laser doors. At some point, I should probably bring up a bigger vault.
New main objective available.
Head to the minion training screen to request some advanced minions. We have 2 guard trainers, so set your lair to always try and maintain 4 guards. When they are defeated in combat, your minions will quickly train and create new guards to take their place at your side. Wow, look at them go. I could do that, but I don't want to. Guards are just one of the muscle-type minions you will be able to find as you expand your empire.
Uppercut.
Optional.
All that glitters. Time is money.
Schnell!
Fenster. Mouse. I should train some more scientists. Alright. What else is that domain done? 81%. Alright. You know what's stupid? Air conditioners don't take a lot of electricity. Technically, both heaters and air conditioners take quite a bit of electricity, if I'm not mistaken. Unfortunately, I have to wait until this stupid thing is done. Well, I kind of want to wait in any case. Well, I can start building it now, anyways. I think I'll build a layer on a different floor, anyways. So.
New main objective available.
Now that you have enough guards to support them, request some guard posts towards the entrance to your lair.
Yeah, one here. And one here.
Your scientists have made a breakthrough.
During high alert, your guards will diligently man these aptly named guard posts.
Research has begun.
Now, let's see if we can knock some of this stuff out. Someday, love will find you.
Not enough gold to complete this construction.
Don't tell me what I know. Hello?
New main objective available.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, sounds good. And I'll see. I might run up today at least and grab the rest of those things that you were talking about the other day. Like, did you bring home the shoes yourself, or was that? I'll maybe at least grab a load or something. And right, yeah, yeah.
We have picked up some movement near your lair. Keep an eye out for incoming agents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we can figure out something, I imagine. Mm-hmm. All right. Want to switch vehicles?
Guards like to use their muscles to defeat agents. Tag this agent for...
Yeah, it'll probably will be one. I'll see if I'm gonna go or not. All right. Anyway. All right. See you. Bye.
A swift termination.
Mm-hmm. Okay, this is not going to work, is it? That's why I'm not really get it down there anyways.
Call from 724203973.
Don't answer calls you don't know. Come on. their little heads out. This is a lot bigger casino in this area. I wonder if you could actually like convert the casino into something.
I have reports of an intruder in the lair. Kill them!
Turn on high alert and watch as your minions scurry to deal with any tagged agents they find in your lair.
What next? Evil minds think alike.
Oh, okay.
Wunderbar. Even evil has its limits. Very well.
Nicely done. Turn off high alert once you have finished dancing. Fisticuffs are an occupational hazard for your guards and lowers their vitality. A short stay in the infirmary can patch them right up.
Alright, infirmary. Now, where to put it? It doesn't have to be closed off, I don't think so.
An intensive care pod like this can officially deal with 1,000 boo-boos per hour. Actual results may vary. If a minion's vitality gets too low, they will go to the closest infirmary to attempt to heal. If their vitality reaches 0, then it might be time to hire a new minion.
Alright. Powerhouse. Maybe we should start building a couple more first. Then see what we see. No, it's not gonna. Well, fill that in.
Not enough gold to complete this construction. New main objective available.
Well done. Your horde of guards will be the first line of defense and help to keep the riffraff out. Collect the completed side story to continue your world domination.
Wait, why am I hearing monkeys? It's not in my head, is it?
Now this is more like it. Tell me, what do you bench press?
The biggest one.
Right. Okay. Not quite what I expected. How many bullet wounds would it take to kill you?
The biggest one.
Are you okay? Wait, I don't want to know. You're high.
1 down, 2 to go. Select a new minion site.
You! Are you responsible? Yes, boss. It looks broken to me. Don't you repair these things?
We try, but it hurts. The sparks, you see.
I can't rule the world from a ramshackle lair with hunk-of-junk equipment. Kidnap a specialist. Interrogate them.
Many objectives require you to send different types of minions to run special schemes. Let's go to the world stage to get started.
Beautiful, waiting to starlight in the window, waiting for the No, that's definitely a thing. There's monkeys making monkey sounds somewhere.
Not enough gold to complete this construction. Not enough gold to complete this construction.
Push. Push. What the hell? Shush. Alright.
One of the highlighted schemes is near one of your criminal networks. You can send minions to complete the scheme now, or you can search the globe for an alternative.
All right. I think we're into the positive.
Your research has been completed. Research has begun.
Research has begun.
A scheme has succeeded.
Your minions have kidnapped a specialist. Once they're in a holding cell, you can choose to interrogate them.
All right. All right. Now, expand some of this.
New optional objective available. Not enough gold to complete this construction.
Alright. Let's go down here. Do some cool stuff. I thought I already
Salaries
dispatched them.
paid.
Okay, so I did do it. All right, we're good. We're good.
Select the holding cell and then select escort prisoner. After that, select the interrogation device.
Yes,
For now,
done this
that's the
before.
interrogation chair.
I've done this before. I should get some more of this stuff going. Alright. That's my minion capacity. Minions
An
assemble!
intruder has given us their secrets.
Interrogation has revealed to us how to build new training furniture. Build the new item in your training room.
Hold on, hold on. Hang on, hang on.
A new tier of research has been unlocked.
Huzzah. Alright, let's see if we can reset some of these. I want to see if we can use this part for something else, maybe, if I could have a chance. Alright. I think you're gonna get quite a bit of this anyways. Let's see. Stick some of this into here.
A scheme has succeeded.
Head to the minion training screen to request some advanced minions.
New main objective available.
Request the amount of this specialist you want in your lair. Your minions will always try to keep to this number. Your workers will start to train automatically. They'll learn faster if another minion is able to teach them.
That's what we have as far. 92,000. So if I move this row over just a touch to increase the capacity.
New optional objective available. Not enough gold to complete this construction.
Alright. Now, extinguishers there or something. Oh, actually, let me see here.
New main objective available.
Things always have a tendency to explode, and this leads to fire. Having fire extinguishers nearby is never a bad thing.
There we go. Fire extinguishers, yes.
A scheme has succeeded.
Any of your minions can pick up and use a fire extinguisher.
Sorry, am I absent like workers? Oh, there we go.
Optional objective complete.
You can deploy devious traps throughout the corridors of your lair to help fend off snooping agents.
New main objective available.
Make
good
sure
thing
you
here is
train
that at
enough
least there's a
technicians
nice
to keep
kind of a
all your
built-in
traps in working order.
long
Traps
hallway.
won't trigger if their durability
lot of
gets too low.
And the other one, there's just kind of a... I don't remember what the default thing is. What the? Alright. Fine. Fine. Am I not researching anything at the moment? Oh. Huzzah. Nuclear generators. I can get $20,000. And this. These two right here. You need a different level, more space. This might be a bit of a shorter game stream today just because I was doing a whole bunch of stuff earlier.
New main objective available.
Ow.
We have picked up some movement near
In a
your
nice
lair.
way.
Keep
One
an
of those
eye
with
out
pain
for
that's a little
incoming
bit embracing.
agents.
Salaries paid.
Alright. That's nice. Oh, I do have some more room for some more stuff. Alright. Here we go. Cut down low. And it begins with England. First England, then the world.
This agent looks like they might have some juicy information. Tag them for capture.
And luckily in this one, the casino is also way more expansive as well, I think. Way a lot better for distracting them. What I could do too is expand
Not enough gold to complete this construction.
Swinge.
A new criminal network has been established. A new criminal network has been established. A new criminal network has been established.
All right.
I demand that intruder be located and captured.
Capturing agents such as this investigator is a great way of ensuring they don't inform the authorities of your dastardly deeds.
Yeah, dastardly. The question is, do we want to build a wall, a great wall? It's gonna be a great wall. Somewhere in here. Let's see if I can set up a line of bunks on either side. Would that be effective use of
A
space?
trap has been triggered.
You know what? Might be better is if I move these guys. Like so. Oh, not putting that one in already. All right. Now. See.
New optional objective available. Not enough rockers to support your current minion count.
Shush. Alright. I still have a couple of things, so we can go to Africa here if we like.
We have captured an intruder.
Select the holding cell and then select escort prisoner. After that, select the interrogation device. For now, that's the interrogation chair.
All right. Am I researching anything? No.
Research has begun.
That one.
Research has begun. An intruder has given us their secrets.
Being a clever technician is brain-straining work, and this drains smarts. When a minion's smarts drops to critical levels, they'll need to study in the archive.
A new criminal network has been established.
I think we have to put the archive over here somewhere. At some point, I'm probably
A
going to move
new
the vault
criminal
to the next
network has been established.
like so. All right, archive now. Sorry, archive. Oh, I don't have enough tiles planned. All right. Better?
A re-educator will teach your minions everything they need to know about the world and how it works. Greed is good, and so on.
That's how the world
A
works.
minion will always attempt to rest before their smarts becomes critical. If their smarts is this low, it often means an agent has bamboozled them.
Alright, you know what? I think we're gonna be done for now. See you next time. So, just a moment of kind of seriousness before we get into this. I do realize that whatever's going on over in the Middle East is a very divisive topic. Without trying to get too political, obviously, I think most of us recognize that the idea of something can be good, but the application of that idea is rarely so perfect, and is always something that is perhaps, at the very least, worthy of critique. There are people who spend their entire lives studying this, and they still can't agree on who's in the right, who's in the wrong, what all is going on. Point being, it's a very, very, very complex issue. Anyways, right, as I said, I will try to avoid anything very controversial for the next while here, but for the moment, we're going to check out something I've always been kind of curious about, aka history of Israel. We start at the Second Temple period. I believe this was preceded by, I guess, the Babylonian diaspora. This gets into Bible times almost, but we have 538 to 332 BC. I'm not using BCE, you troglodytes. No, I'm going to go grab some water, though. Alright, welcome back to Popular History. The history of Israel. not in the least bit divisive. Alright, Achaemenid. Achaemenid? I don't know. Period 538 to 332 BC. You say it right, like a Christian. No. In 538 BC, Cyrus the Great and conquered Babylon and took over its empire. Okay, is this supposed to be the Persians? That looks like the Persian Empire. Is there some sort of fancy ancient Iranian empire? That's Persian. That's the Persian Empire. Granting religious freedom to all people subjugated by Babylonians. See Cyrus Cyllin? What? Okay. Is that some sort of writing? Okay. According to the Bible, Jewish exiles in Babylon, including 50,000 Judeans led by Zerubbabel, returned to Judah to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. The second temple was subsequently completed 515 BC. A second group of 5,000, led by Ezra and Nehemiah, returned to Judah in 457 BC. 456. Oh, dang it. The first was empowered by the Persian king to enforce religious rule. The second had the status of governor and a royal mission to restore the walls of the city. Yeah. There was the whole thing, if you remember the story in the Bible, where they were supposed to have been like working with one hand with a weapon in the other. Yeah, they would apparently, like, I think that was the idea, like they'd be working with one hand and they had a weapon in the other. There were some people who didn't really want the walls to be finished. I forgot what the actual names of them were, but yeah. To be fair, there's actually that's something that's stereotypically Jewish in that there were problems involving, I think it was some sort of lending and buying, where people who were really wealthy had, I think people would almost indenture their children in order to pay for debts or something. This was, I think, between Jews or something, where they would indenture their children in order to pay for a debt, and Nehemiah was, either Ezra or Nehemiah was taking them to task for this notion, and basically, I think the idea was he wanted these people to be able to help with the walls, or I don't know. You have to go read it again. Yeah, like I said, kind of it's like a very stereotypical Jewish story. I think there would be stereotypes about their thriftiness with regards to money, in any case, and lending and buying. A lot of. Anyways, the country remained a province of the Achaemenid Empire called Yehud. Down with the Yehud. That's a thing, right? The final text of the Torah is thought to have been written during the Persian period, probably 450 to 350 BC. The text was formed by editing and unifying earlier texts. The returning Israelites adopted an Aramaic script, also known as the Ashura alphabet, which they brought back from Babylon. This is the current Hebrew script. Interesting. Now, for whatever reason, I would have thought of the Hebrews as having their own script at some point, but the Hebrew calendar closely resembles the Babylonian calendar and probably dates from this period. The Bible describes tensions between the returnees, the elite of the First Temple period, and those who had remained in Judah. It is possible that the returnees, supported by the Persian monarchy, became large landholders at the expense of the people who had remained to work the land in Judah, whose opposition to the Second Temple would have reflected the fear that exclusion from the cult, how dare you, sir, would deprive them of land rights. Judah had become, in practice, a theocracy ruled by the hereditary high priests and a Persian-appointed governor, frequently Jewish. The Persian-appointed governor, frequently Jewish, charged with keeping order and seeing that tribute was paid. A Judean military garrison was placed by the Persians on Elephantine Island. Okay. It's an island on the Nile, forming a part of the city of Aswan in Upper Egypt. The archaeological digs on the island became a World Heritage Site in 1979, along with other examples of Upper Egyptian architecture as part of the Nubian monuments from Abu Simbel to Philae. All right, that last one sounds Greek. Philae. Near Aswan in Egypt. In the early 20th century, 175 papyrus documents recording activity in this community were discovered, including the Passover Papyrus, a letter instructing the garrison on how to correctly conduct the Passover feast. Interesting. This is the Persian garrison who was conducting the Passover feast. Alright. In 332 BC, Alexander the Great of Macedon conquered the region as part of his campaign against the that empire. After his death in 322, his generals divided the empire, and Judea became the frontier region between the Seleucid Empire and the Ptolemaic kingdom in Egypt. Ptolemy. Who was Ptolemy? Was he one of the pharaohs or something? It's kind of a cool name. I copy that for later. In Egypt, following a century of Ptolemaic rule. Actually, I'm going to look that up now. Alright. Alright, search web for Ptolemaic. Relating to Greek, so it's a Greek thing. Relating to the Greek astronomer Ptolemy and his theories. Okay. Cool. Following a century of Ptolemaic rule, Judea was conquered by the Seleucid Empire in 200 BC. The Battle of Panium. Hellenistic rulers generally respected Jewish culture and protected Jewish institutions. Judea was ruled by a hereditary office, the high priest of Israel, as a Hellenistic vassal. Nevertheless, the region underwent the process of Hellenization, which heightened tensions between Greeks, Hellenized Jews, and observant Jews. These tensions escalated into clashes involving a power struggle for the position of high priest and the character of the holy city of Jerusalem. When Antioch IV, Epiphanes, consecrated the temple, forbade Jewish practices, and forcibly imposed Hellenistic norms on the Jews, several centuries of religious tolerance under Jewish control came to an end. In 167 BC, the Maccabean revolt erupted after Matthias, a Jewish priest of the Hasmonean lineage, killed the Hellenized Jew, and a Seleucid official who participated in sacrifice to the Greek gods in Modin. Modin was an ancient Jewish city located in Judea near the modern city of Modin, Israel. His son Judas Maccabeus defeated the Seleucids in several battles, and in 164 BC he captured Jerusalem and restored temple worship, an event commemorated by the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. That's legit. Nice. It's like their 4th of July almost. To be fair, though, it happens around Christmas, so it's kind of, I think it's more that type of ethos than a type of revolutionary type of idea. I guess it could be wrong. I guess I don't know. I've never actually looked into Hanukkah that much. Maybe it is literally just that type of like 4th of July-esque rebellion, conquer, etc. 12 days of Hanukkah. There's still the presents, right? One for each day. So I'm not for sure exactly how that works. Anyways, after Judas's Judas. How do you say it? Judas's death. His brothers Jonathan Aphos, and Simon Thassi. These names are getting me. All right, were able to establish and consolidate a vassal Hasmonean state in Judea, capitalizing on the Seleucid Empire's decline and result of internal instability and wars with the Parthians. Who are the Parthians, also known as the Arsacid Empire, was a major Iranian political and cultural power centered in ancient Iran from 247 BC to 224 AD. Yeah, see, these people do it right. BC AD, in the year of our Lord. They're not sinners. To be fair, I think if I were not a Christian, I guess the whole idea of it feels like it is just kind of the state of the world that like so much of it is oriented around Christian culture, at least in the West. That like, yeah, 80 BC kind of makes sense. But I suppose there are people who would prefer not to acknowledge a God either they don't believe in or a God that they don't acknowledge, I suppose, in the case of atheists or people who just practice other religions. So maybe they wanted to come up with... I think that's the whole reason they created the BCE, before Common Era. And then... No, BC would... Hold on. What is the Common Era? I think they just use CE. Like BCE and then CE. Before Common Era, Common Era. Like the degenerates they are. Anyways. And by forging with the rising Roman Republic, Hasmonean leader John Hyrcanus was able to gain independence, doubling Judea's territory. He took control of Idumea, where he converted the Edomites to Judaism. He invaded Scythopolis and Samaria, where he demolished the Samaritan temple. See, the Samaritans were kind of in a bit of a strange position where I would have gotten the ideas at one point they would have been Jewish, but they had either intermarried or there was some sort of thing going on where they weren't Jewish anymore. Samaritans. Samaritan version of their own history became available. The chronicles of a variety of non-Samaritan. Alright. Let's look this up. Samaritans, Romanized, often preferring to be called Israelite Samaritans, are an ethno-religious group originating from the Hebrews and Israelites of the ancient Near East. They are indigenous to Samaria, a historical region in ancient Israel and Judah. They are adherents to Samaritanism, an Abrahamic monotheistic and ethnic religion that developed alongside Judaism. Interesting. Regarding the Samaritan Pentateuch as the unaltered Torah, the Samaritans view Judaism as a closely related faith, but claim that Judaism is fundamentally alters the original Israelite religion. Interesting. The plot thickens. The most notable theological divide between Jewish and Samaritan doctrine concerns the holy site, which the Jews believe is the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, where I'm pretty sure that isn't there some sort of mosque built there now? I could be wrong. In Jerusalem, and which Samaritans identify as Mount Gerizim, near modern Nablus, and ancient Shechem. It's fun to say. Shechem. It sounds vaguely like some vulgar invocation, though. A cuss or a curse, sorry. In the Samaritan version of Deuteronomy 16:6, both Jews and Samaritans assert that the binding of Isaac occurred at their respective holy sites. The binding of Isaac, sorry. I wouldn't have gotten it. Well, I guess I don't really know that I would have thought either of those necessarily occurred. I don't know if like I'd have thought that Jerusalem had anything to do with the binding of Isaiah. But then again, I'm not really Jewish. Just kind of the bastard offspring of Judaism, I suppose. No, I'll reassert that. Or I'll reiterate that. Judaism is the senile older relative of Christianity. The lovable yet senile older relative of Christianity. That's how that works. Alright, Samaritans attribute their schism with the Jews to Eli, who was the penultimate Israel Shophet, and a priest in Shiloh in 1 Samuel 1. The Samaritan belief is that he is accused of establishing a worship site in Shiloh with himself as high priest in opposition to the one on Mount Gerizim. Interesting. Anyways, I think we're done there for now. Samaritan. All right. We're gonna maybe look at the neo-Nazi stuff. I'll see if I have time for that. Give the loonies a little bit of a air to voice their opinions. All right. Hyrcanus was the first Hasmonean leader in the mint coins under his sons, King Aristobulus, Alexander Hannaeus. Oh, for the love. Too many names. Hasmonean Judea became a kingdom, and its territories continued to expand, now also covering the coastal plains, Galilee, and part of Transjordan. All right. Some scholars argue that the Hasmonean dynasty also institutionalized the final Jewish biblical canon. Under Hasmonean rule, Pharisees, Sadducees, and the mystic Essenes? What is this? Were a mystic Jewish community during the Second Temple period that flourished from the 2nd century BC to 1st century AD. Alright. As the principal Jewish social movements, the Pharisee sage Simon ben Shetach is credited with establishing the first schools based around meeting houses, blah, 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 blah. So we're going to go to the early Roman period here. Alright, in 63 BC, the Roman Republic conquered Judea, ending Jewish independence under the Hasmoneans. Roman general Pompey intervened in a dynastic civil war, and after capturing Jerusalem, reinstated Hyrcanus II as high priest, but denied him the title of king. Rome soon installed the Herodian dynasty of Idumean descent, but Jewish by conversion. Soon installed the Herodian dynasty of Idumean descent. Who's Idumean? Alright, Edom. Okay, interesting. So it's the southern part there. But Jewish by conversion as a loyal replacement for the nationalist Hasmoneans. In 37 BC, Herod the Great, the first client king of his line, took power after defeating the restored Hasmonean king Antigonus II, Matthias. Herod imposed heavy taxes, suppressed opposition, and centralized authority, which fostered widespread resentment. Herod also carried out major monumental construction projects throughout his kingdom and significantly expanded the Second Temple, which he transformed into one of the largest religious structures in the ancient world. After his death in 4 BC, his kingdom was divided amongst his sons into a tetrarchy, which I looked up actually. It just means divided into 4 sectors, I guess. I think that's the idea. Like you basically just it's a ruler, like a tetrarch is a ruler of one of 4 segments of whatever country or province or whatever. I don't know. Continued under Roman oversight. In 6 CE, Roman Emperor August transformed Judea into a Roman province, deposing its last Jewish ruler, Herod Archelaus, and appointing the Roman governor in his place. That same year, a census triggered a small uprising by Judas of Galilee, the founder of a movement that rejected foreign authority and recognized only God as king. Over the next 6 decades, with a brief exception of a short period of Jewish autonomy under the client king Herod Agrippa, the province remained under direct Roman administration. Some governors ruled with brutality and showed little regard for Jewish religion sensitivities, deepening resentment among local population. This discontentment was also fueled by poor governance, corruption, and growing economic inequality, along with a rising tension between the Jews and neighboring populations over ethnic, religious, and territorial disputes. At the same time, collective memory of the Maccabean revolt and the period of Hasmonean independence continued to inspire hopes for national liberations from Roman control. In 64 CE, in other words, in the year of our Lord, AD 64, the temple high priest Joshua ben Gamla introduced a religious requirement for Jewish boys to learn to read from the age of 6. Over the next few hundred years, this requirement became steadily more ingrained in Jewish tradition. That's kind of interesting because I feel like it would be almost quite, I guess, I don't know, it seems like that's a kind of a unique sort of thing to do, like mandatory reading. Advantageous to some extent as well. The Jewish-Roman Wars were a series of large-scale revolts by Jewish subjects against Roman Empire between 66 and 335 AD. The term primarily applies to the First Jewish-Roman War, 66 to 73 AD, and Revolt, 132 to 136 AD. Both nationalist rebellions aimed at restoring Jewish independence in Judea. Some sources also include the Diaspora Revolt, 115 to 117 AD, an ethno-religious conflict fought across the eastern Mediterranean, including the Kaitos Wars in Judea. The Jewish-Roman Wars had a devastating impact on the Jewish people, transforming them from major population in eastern Mediterranean into a dispersed and persecuted minority. The First Jewish-Roman War culminated in the destruction of Jerusalem and other towns and villages in Judea, resulting in a significant loss of life and considerable segmentation of the population being uprooted or displaced. Those who remained were stripped of any form of political autonomy. Subsequently, the brutal suppression of Bar Kokhba I'm assuming that's just Bar Kokhba revolt, resulted in even more severe consequences. Judah witnessed a significant depopulation as many Jews were killed, expelled, or sold into slavery. The outcome of the conflict marked the termination of efforts to reestablish a Jewish state until the modern era. Jews were banned from residing in the vicinity of Jerusalem, which the Romans rebuilt into a pagan colony of Aelia Capitolina. The province of Judah was renamed Syria Palestina. So I would have gotten the idea that Palestina was kind of a xenonym. Palestine. Syria Palestina was renamed Roman province, formerly known as Judea, following the Roman suppression of the Bar Kokhba revolt in what became known as Palestina. Between the early Yeah, I think it was kind of, they wanted to tick off the Jews by calling it, which I think Palestine was in reference to the ancient, maybe enemies of Judea, which is like the Philistines. I kind of think that's what it had to do with. The Philistines were actually, they would have also maybe been kind of foreigners as well, where I think they would have, the idea was they might have been like Greek sailors or something like that, who would kind of settle on the coastline there in the Gaza Strip or somewhere around there-ish. So, yeah, Syria, Palestine. I was wondering when that happened. Syria, Palestina, collectively, these events enhanced the role of Jewish diaspora, relocating the Jewish demographics and cultural center to Galilee, and eventually to Babylonia, with smaller communities across the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and beyond. The Jewish-Roman wars also had a major impact on Judaism after the central worship site, the Second Temple, the Second Temple Judaism, and the Second Temple in Jerusalem was destroyed by Titus's troops in 70 A.D. The destruction of the temple led to the transformation in Jewish religious practices, emphasizing prayer, Torah study, and communal gatherings in synagogues. This pivotal shift laid the foundation for the emergence of Rabbinic Judaism. Rabbinic Judaism is rooted in the many forms of Judaism that coexist and together form the Second Temple Judaism in the land of Israel, giving birth to classical. In the land of Israel, giving birth to classical Rabbinic Judaism, which flourished. Which seemed to be the dominant form of Judaism since the late antiquity after the codification of the Babylonian Talmud. The central text of Rabbinic Judaism and second in authority only to the Hebrew Bible, the first 5 books of which form the Torah. Its primary source of Jewish law and Jewish theology. It consists of part of the oral Torah compiled and its commentaries. Alright, interesting. Late Roman period. As a result of the disastrous effects of Bar Kokhba revolt, Jewish presence in the region significantly dwindled. Over the next centuries, more Jews left to communities in the diaspora, especially the large, speedily growing Jewish community in Babylonia and Arabia. Others remained in the land of Israel, where the spiritual and demographic centers shifted from the depopulated Judea to Galilee. Jewish presence also continued in the southern Hebron Hills, in En Gedi, and on the coastal plains. The Mishnah and the Jewish Talmud, a huge compilation of rabbinic discussions, were compiled during the 2nd to 4th centuries, Anno Domini, in Tiberias and Jerusalem. Following the revolt, Judea's countryside was penetrated by pagan, it's kind of violent, penetrated by pagan populations, including migrants from nearby provinces of Syria, Phoenicia, and Arabia. Whereas Elea Capitolina, its immediate vicinity, okay, what is this? Minor city within the Roman Empire. It was a Roman colony founded during the Roman Emperor Hadrian's visit to Judea, 130 Anno Domini. It was founded on the ruins of Jerusalem. Okay. Founded on the ruins of Jerusalem, which had been almost totally razed after the siege in 70 AD. Its immediate vicinity and administrative centers were now inhabited by Roman veterans and settlers from the western parts of the empire. The Romans permitted hereditary rabbinic patriarch from the house of Hillel, called Nasi, to represent the Jews in dealings with Romans. One prominent figure was Judah ha-Nasi, credited with compiling the final version of the Mishnah. What is this? The first written collection of Jewish oral traditions are known as the Oral Torah, having been collected in 3rd century CE. Oh, dang it. A Christian man. AD, its first work of rabbinic literature, primarily in Mishnah Hebrew, but also partly in Jewish Aramaic. The oldest surviving physical blah blah blah. All right. A vast collection of Jewish oral traditions. He also emphasized the importance of education in Judaism, leading to requirements that illiterate Jews be treated as outcasts. Okay, that's a little bit extreme. I support literacy, but yeah. This might have contributed to some illiterate Jews converting to Christianity. The Jewish seminaries, such as those at Shefaram and Bet Shearim, continued to produce scholars. The best of these became members of the Sanhedrin, which was located first at Sepphoris and later at Tiberias in the Galilee. Many synagogues. All right. Oh, where was I? Many synagogues have been found dating to this period, and burial site of the Sanhedrin leaders was discovered in Bet Shariam. In the 3rd century, the Roman Empire faced an economic crisis and imposed heavy taxations to fund wars of imperial succession. How delightful. This situation prompted additional Jewish migration from Syria, Palestina, to the Sasanian Empire. Okay, what's this? Officially, Aranshar was an Iranian empire that was founded and ruled by the... Oh, come on, where was I? Right, that's not insubstantial. The length of this ancient Iran was second only to that of Arasid dynasty of Persia or something. Anyways, where was I? Dang it. Migration from Syria, Palestina, to the Sasanian Empire, known for its more tolerant environment. There, a flourishing Jewish community with important Talmudic academies. Is that a misquote? Academies. Oh, goodness gracious. Didn't even occur to me. All right. Thrived in Babylonia, engaging in notable rivalries with the Talmudic academies of Palestina. During the 4th century, the Emperor Constantine made Constantinople the capital of East Roman Empire and made Christianity an accepted religion. His mother, Helena, made a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, 326 to 328 AD, and led the construction of the Church of the Nativity, basilica located in Bethlehem, West Bank, Palestine. The grotto holds a prominent religious significance to Christians of various denominations and the birthplace of Jesus. The grotto is the oldest site continuously used as a place of worship. I assume that's what that means. The birthplace of Jesus in Bethlehem, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, burial site of Jesus in Jerusalem, and other key churches that still exist. The name Jerusalem was restored to Alea Capitolina and became a Christian city. The Jews were still banned from living in Jerusalem, but were allowed to visit and worship at the site of the ruined temple. Again, I think there's some mosque now built on the Temple Mount. I'm not sure. No, I don't know what it is. Over the course of the next century, Christians worked to eradicate paganism, leading to the destruction of classical Roman traditions and eradication of their temples. Well, tit for tat, isn't it? And other Jewish revolts in the Other Jewish revolt in the Galilee erupted against the corrupt Roman governor. Alright. Byzantine period. 390 to 634. The Roman Empire split in 390 CE, and the region became part of the Eastern Roman Empire known as Byzantine. You know, I might skip to the Ottoman Empire because I think that they were the ones who ruled it with the rise of... Who was the dude? Saladin. I might go skim over this just a little bit. The Roman Empire, the region became part of the Eastern Roman Empire known as the Byzantine Empire. Under Byzantine rule, much of the region and its non-Jewish population were won over by Christianity, which eventually became the dominant religion in the region. The presence of holy sites drew Christian pilgrims. See, I think there was a thing with this, actually, where there would be the idea that you couldn't have had Christian slaves. You couldn't hold Christian slaves. There might have been other incentives beyond theological integrity to merit converting to Christianity. The presence of holy sites drew Christian pilgrims. Some chose to settle, contributing to the rise of majority Christian authorities encouraged this pilgrim movement, appropriate lands construction, magnificent churches at locations linked to biblical narratives. Established modern... Alright, here's one. During the Byzantine period, Jewish presence in the region declined, and it is believed that the Jews lost their majority status in Palestine. In the 4th century, while Judaism remained the sole non-Christian religion, tolerated restrictions... while Judaism remained the sole non-Christian religion, tolerated restrictions on Jews gradually increased, prohibiting the construction of new places of worship, holding public office, or owning Christian slaves. So Jews couldn't own Christian slaves. Okay. In 425, after the death of the last Nazi, Gamaliel the 6th, sorry. Nazi office in the Sanhedrin was officially abolished. And the standing Yeshu... Wait, what is this? Oh, come on. Alright. What is this? Traditional Jewish Educational Institution focused on the study of rabbinic literature. Alright. And the standing of Yeshivot? I don't know. The leadership and the standing of the Yeshivot weakened. The leadership void was gradually filled by Jewish centers in Babylonia, which would assume a leading role in the Jewish world for generations after the Byzantine period. During the 5th and 6th century AD, the region witnessed a series of Samaritan revolts against the Byzantine rule. Their suppression resulted in the decline of Samaritan presence and influence, and further consolidated the Christian domination. Though it is acknowledged that some Jews and Samaritans converted to Christianity during the Byzantine period, the reliable historical records are limited. They pertain to individual conversions rather than entire communities. Alright, early Muslim period. These guys, Muslims, they were like the OG. Well, I say OG. Conquistadors. Feels like religiously, at least, they might have been one of the OG, oh, goodness. Conquistadors? Colonizers. They were right up there with the Romans. Well, technically, they would have... I think the Ottoman Empire would have brought about kind of... come in after the Roman Empire was falling. I think the Roman Empire was falling around maybe 400, and then it maybe broke into several sectors. The Holy Roman Empire. I don't know if the Byzantine would have been a sector of that. And these guys just came in after the Byzantines. They went into a lot of North Africa too, I think. Barbary slave trade. The Berbers. I think they kind of actually... The Berbers would, I think, have actually been natives to North Africa, which the Muslims kind of stomped out a little bit. But I guess the ethnic, whatever, kind of remained. I think the Berbers, though, was an actual. It was either some sort of social or religious thing that the Muslims kind of pushed out when they came in. Actually, the Muslims got all the way over into Spain. I think they at one point. I don't know how much of Spain they got into, but they were eventually kicked out of there. Crazy stuff. For the record, I kind of put everyone in and around the Mediterranean into almost the same racial grouping, like North Africa, Middle East, South Europe. There was a lot of like trade that went on, and to my mind, that they're all kind of into the same almost ethnic grouping a little bit. Mediterranean. We'll call it the Mediterranean race. Alright. Now I have to look up Levant. Alright. Where was I? I was looking up this, actually. This was kind of the extent, I think, of the... At a certain point. But I think at one point, like, the Ottoman Empire... Well, I don't know if it was the Ottomans, per se, but the Muslim Empire would have gone all the way up into Spain. Yeah, that's a goodly portion of the world. Area of influence. So the white areas are areas of influence. Then you have vassal states like this. No, never mind. That's a piece of water. This is a vassal state up here. Okay. Stupid. I think is that the Black Sea? Yeah. Anyways, back to the main business. Right. All right. The Levant okay, so the Levant, I think, is just the entire area by an Arab army under command of Umar ibn al-Khattab in 635 and became a province of Bilad al-Sham, the Rashidun Caliphate. Two military districts, Jun Filastin, spelled different, but I guess pronounced maybe the same, and Hun al-Urdun was established in Palestine. New city called Ramla was built as a Muslim capital of the Hun Filastin. While Tiberias served as the capital of Hun al-Urdun. The Byzantine ban on Jews living in Jerusalem came to an end. Say, kudos to them, I guess. In 661, Muawiyah was crowned caliph in Jerusalem, becoming the first of the Damascus-based Umayyad dynasty. Okay. So they dig into Spain, I guess. Yeah, they would have gone all the way around here, pretty far into Asia too. Wow. All right. Umayyad constructed the Dome of the Rock. That's the one on Temple Mount. The Dome of the Rock. Dome of the Rock is an octagonal Islamic shrine at the center of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Al-Aqsa Mosque compound on the Temple Mount in the old city of Jerusalem, which I think they're kind of dicey about who they let in there. I think there was something where AP and Tommy Robinson had tried to get in there, and you had to. Well, no, I don't know if it was Temple Mount or something else, but they had to recite some verses of the Quran or something. The old city of Jerusalem. It is the world's oldest surviving work of Islamic architecture, and the earliest archaeological attested religious structure to be built by a Muslim ruler. Nice. Well, I mean, not nice. It's the Temple Mount, but I guess whatever. It's a nice building in any case. Where the two Jewish temples had been located. A second building, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, was erected on Temple Mount in 705. Both buildings were rebuilt in the 10th century following a series of earthquakes. Okay. In 750, Arab discrimination against non-Arab Muslims led to the Abbasid Revolution, and the Umayyads were replaced by the Abbasid caliphs, who built a new city, Baghdad, to be their capital. This period, known as the Islamic Golden Age, the Arab Empire was the largest in the world, and Baghdad the largest and richest city. Both Arabs and minorities prospered across the region, and much scientific progress was made. There were, however, setbacks. During the 8th century, the Caliph Umar II introduced a law requiring Jews and Christians to wear identifying clothing. Nice. The Jews were required to wear yellow stars surrounded their necks and on their hats. The Christians had to wear blue. Clothing regulations surrounding clothing regulations arose during repressive periods of Arab rule, were more designed to humiliate them than persecute non-Muslims. To humiliate than okay, that's not exactly mutually exclusive. Humiliating and persecuting are kind of in the same thing. A poll tax was imposed on all non-Muslims. It's called the jizya, I believe. It's a whole thing. And for the record, I believe Christians and Jews are actually kind of privileged people under what's the Sharia. All right. They just have to pay jizya. I think pretty much everyone else, atheists, pagans, would have been just. But no, Jews and Christians, they could live, I think, under Muslim rule. And to be fair, like what is stated in the Quran, and maybe what was done sometimes, isn't maybe not what was always done. But I do think that is kind of the standard that was set out by Muhammad to some extent. I don't know if it was actually stated in the Quran or if it's just kind of what they did at the time. I don't know. In 982, Caliph, the Cairo-based Fatimid dynasty conquered the region. Fatimids were followers of Ismailism. What the? It's a branch of Shia Islam. Okay, so it's still Islam, all right. And claimed descent from Fatima, who's one of Muhammad's wives, I believe. Oh, never mind. Daughter. All right. It's commonly known as Fatima al-Zahra, daughter of the Islamic prophet Muhammad, and his wife. What? Was the daughter of the Islam and his wife Khadijah. Okay, sorry. If you ever hear stories about Muhammad, you would maybe understand. He's a kind of a sex fiend. There's a very dubious recollections of him in the Quran and other places. Was Ali the fourth of the Rashidian caliphs? I think there was something about the rightly guided caliphs. All right, and the first Shia Imam. Fatima's sons were Hassan, Hussein. All right. Muhammad's daughter, around the year 1010, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, believed to be Jesus' burial site, was destroyed by Fatima, Caliph al-Hakim, who relented 10 years later and paid for it to be rebuilt. That's nice of him. Not so nice to kill it or destroy it, but nice of him to have it rebuilt. In 1020, Al-Hakim claimed the divine status. Holy shit, that escalated quickly. And the newly formed Druze religion gave him the status of a messiah. How delightful. Okay. Although Arab conquest was relatively peaceful, I don't think relatively peaceful is a way to describe it. In the same way that, you know, some protests in recent years have been called relatively peaceful. This was kind of relatively peaceful. There was a lot of killing, perhaps, that they didn't just raze cities to the ground or salt the land with their blood or something like that, but it wasn't exactly peaceful, I don't think. It did alter the country's demographics significantly. Over the ensuing several centuries, the region experienced a drastic decline in its population, from an estimated 1 million during the Roman Empire and Byzantine times to some 300,000 by the early Ottoman Empire. This demographic collapse was accompanied by a slow process of Islamization. See, that's the thing, again, Christians and Jews could live under Islamic rule, but you had to pay a jizya, like a really high tax or something like that. So there was incentivizations to join Islam. That resulted from the flight of non-Muslim populations, immigrants of Muslims, and local conversion. The majority of the remaining population belonged to the lowest classes, while the Arab conquerors themselves left the area after the conquest and moved on to other places. The settlement of Arab tribes in the area, both before and after the conquest, also contributed to the Islamization. As a result, the Muslim population steadily grew, and the area became gradually dominated by Muslims on a political and social level. During the Islamic period, many Christians and Samaritans belonging to the Byzantine upper class migrated from the coastal cities to northern Syria and Cyprus, which were still under Byzantine control, while others fled to the Central Highlands and the Transjordan. As a result, coastal towns, formerly important economic centers connected with the rest of the Byzantine world, were emptied of most of their residents. Most of these cities, namely Ashkelon, Acre, Arsuf, and Gaza, now fortified border towns, were resettled by Muslim populations who developed them into significant Muslim centers. The region of Samaria also underwent a process of Islamization as a result of waves of conversions among Samaritan population and an influx of Muslims into the area. The predominantly Jacobite monophysite try to say that one. Monophysitism is a Christological doctrine that states that there is only one nature, the divine, and the person of Jesus Christ, who is incarnate Word, is rejected as heretical by the Catholic Church, Eastern Orthodox Church, Anglicanism, Lutheranism. Okay. Christian population had been hostile to Byzantine Orthodoxy, and at times for that reason welcomed Muslim rule. There was no strong evidence or forced conversion. There is no strong evidence for forced conversion or that the jizya tax significantly affected such. I don't know. If you're saying you literally have to have a tax on you if you don't convert, and maybe it's just in this specific case, but I feel like that there were. I don't know. You'd have to look that up, I guess. I'm not the scholar I should be on that regard. The demographic situation in Palestine was further altered by Urban decline under Abbas, and it is thought that in the 749 earthquake hastened the process by causing an increase in the number of Jewish Christians, Samaritans, the Jews, Christians, and Samaritans who emigrated to the diaspora communities. Well, diaspora communities, while also leaving behind others who remained in the devastated cities and poor villages until they converted to Islam. Probably because they couldn't afford the jizya. Historical records and archaeological evidence. Many Samaritans converted under Abbasad and Tulunid rule. After suffering through several difficulties, such droughts, earthquakes, religious persecution, heavy taxes, and anarchy, the same region also saw the settlement of Arabs. Over the period, the Samaritan population drastically decreased, and with the rural Samaritan population converting to Islam and small urban communities remaining in Nablus and Caesarea, as well as in Cairo, Damascus, Aleppo, Sarepta. Nevertheless, the Muslim population remained a minority in a predominantly Christian area, and it is likely that their status persisted until the Crusader period. Crusades and Mongols. In 1995, Pope Urban II called upon... Okay, urban city, urbane. What does urbane mean? Urbane. I have to look that up. All right. Urbane. Courteous and refined in manner. Okay. So I'm assuming it's maybe in reference to like city manners or something? I don't know. Alright, Pope Urban called on Christians to wage a holy war and to recapture Jerusalem from Muslim rule. Responding to this call, Christians launched the First Crusade. The same year, a military campaign aimed at retaking the Holy Land. In the same year, a military campaign aimed at retaking the Holy Land, ultimately resulting in the successful siege and conquest of Jerusalem in 1999. In the same year, the Crusades conquered Bet Shean and Tiberias, and in the following decades, they captured the coastal cities with the support of the Italian city-state fleets, establishing these coastal ports as crucial strongholds for Crusader rule in the region. Following the First Crusade, several Crusader states were established in the Levant, with the Kingdom of Jerusalem, Regnum Hierosolitanum, oh, for the love, stupid Latin, Hierosolitanum, alright, assuming a preeminent position and enjoying a special status among them. The population consisted of predominantly of Muslims, Christians, Jews, and Samaritans, while the Crusaders remained a minority and relied on the local population who worked the soil. The region saw a construction of numerous robust castles and fortresses, yet efforts to establish permanent European villages proved unsuccessful. Around 1180, Ronald de Chatillon, French, they always cause problems, if I remember correctly. I'm assuming he's the one who caused the problems. Ruler of Transjordan, caused an increasing conflict with the Ayyubid Sultan Saladin. Alright, who was a baller? I guess I don't know. I think by all accounts he was kind of a cool guy. A noble fellow, in any case. Leading to the defeat of the Crusaders in 1187, Battle of Hattin, above Tiberias. Saladin was able to peacefully take Jerusalem and conquered most of the former Kingdom of Jerusalem. Saladin's court physician was Maimonides, which I'm pretty sure is the Jewish name. A refuge from Almohad, Muslim persecution in Cordoba, Spain, where all non-Muslim religions had been banned. So, again, I'm pretty sure Maimonides is Jewish, is a Hebrew name, but he's a refuge from Muslim persecution in Cordoba, Spain. Oh, no, where all non-Muslim religions had been banned. So he was a refuge from Muslim persecution in Spain. Right, okay, it makes more sense. Anyways. The Christian world's response to the loss of Jerusalem came in the Third Crusade of 1190. After lengthy battles and negotiations, Richard the Lionheart and Saladin concluded the Treaty of Jaffa in 1992, whereby Christians were granted free passage to make pilgrimage to the holy sites, while Jerusalem remained under Muslim rule. In 1229, Jerusalem peacefully reverted into Christian control as a part of a treaty between Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II and Ayyubid Sultan al-Kamil that ended the Sixth Crusade. In 1244, Jerusalem was sacked by the Khwarizm Tartars. A group of Turkic-speaking people found across Eastern Europe. All right. The Ashnu dynasty, or the was a Sunni Muslim dynasty of Turkic Mamelukes. Okay, originating from the Bekdili clan of the Oghuz Turks. You know, the Turks actually believe they descended from wolves somehow. They're kind of a stuck-up people. They are literally the Germans of Asia. Now, technically, that would maybe be the Japanese. They have some really interesting... I think they would believe in some sort of polygenetic thing where they originated from different monkeys than everyone else or something. Weird. Weird, weird, weird. All right. Weird, weird, weird. Sorry. All right. All right. Who decimated the city's Christian pop... Oh, crap. Jerusalem was sacked by the Tartars, who decimated the... For the record, decimated just means reduced by 10th, but I think in this case it means destroyed. Decimated the city's Christian population, drove out the Jews, and razed the city. The Khwarezmians were driven out by the Ayyubids. I don't know. Ayyubids in 1247. Between 1258 and 1291, the area was a frontier between the Mongol invaders, occasional Crusader allies, and Mamelukes of Egypt. The Mamluk Sultanate, also known as the Mamluk Egypt or Mamluk Empire, was a state ruled by Egypt. Was a state that ruled Egypt, the Levant, and Hejaz from mid-13th century to early 16th century. With Cairo as its capital, it was ruled by a military caste of Mamelukes, headed by a sultan. Right. So the Mamelukes were the soldiers, yeah. So I'm guessing this is the Levant. Maybe this part? I'm not for sure. Oh, let's look that up. All right. Levant. All right. So it's this whole area here? The notion of Levant has undergone a dynamic process of historical evolution in usage and meaning. Levantine originally referred to European residents. What am I looking at here? Let's go to images. So this is the Levant, like the whole, I think it's got the whole area there. But maybe it involves Turkey. I think it would mostly be relegated to just this specific area here. All right. So now we know what the Levant is. All right. Wrong one. All right. Took control of the kingdom following the failed invasion. Mamelukes of Egypt. The conflict impoverished the country and severely reduced population. In Egypt, a caste of warrior slaves known as Mamelukes, warrior slaves, fancy that, gradually took control of the kingdom. The Mamelukes were mostly Turkish. So they came from Turkey, but were soldiers in Egypt. I guess that's the thing. Mostly of Turkish origin and brought as children and then trained in warfare. They were highly prized warriors who gave rulers independence of native aristocracy. In Egypt, they took control of the kingdom following a failed invasion by the Crusaders, 7th Crusade. French. You never trust a Frenchman. The first Mamluk Sultan, Qutuz, of Egypt, defeated the Mongols in the Battle of Ain Jalut, Goliath Spring, near Ain Harod, ending the Mongol advances. He was assassinated by one of his generals, Baibars, who went on to eliminate most of the Crusader outposts. The Mamelukes ruled Palestine until 1516, regarding it as part of Syria and Hebron. Jews were banned from worshipping at the Cave of the Patriarchs, the second holiest site in Judaism, and they were only allowed to enter 7 steps inside the site. And the ban remained in place until Israel assumed control of the West Bank in the Six-Day War. The Egyptian Mameluke Sultan, Al-Asharif Khalil, conquered the last outpost of Crusader rule in 1291. The Mamelukes continued the policy of Ayyubids. The Ayyubids? Ayyubids? I don't know. Now I have to look up how to say this. As it said, they have an actual pronunciation. I'm just double checking to get my headphones connected back up here if I can. Alright.
अब बात आती है कि इसके बाद किसने रूल किया, इसके बाद इनके अंडर कुछ उसको भी वापस इसकी शुरुआत हुई थी, तो इसके बारे में पढ़ते हैं. अब बात आती है कि इसके बाद किसने इसकी शुरुआत.
Alright, let's just look up pronunciation. Pronunciation. Ayyubids? AI? Oh my goodness. Ayyubid. Ayyubid. Alright. That's easier. Ayyubid made the strategic decision to destroy the coastal area and to bring desolation to many of its cities, from Tyre in the north to Gaza in the south. Gaza. Oh, why do people say it that way? Is that the appropriate way? Gaza. I've heard it pronounced that way. Ports were destroyed and various materials were dumped to make them inoperable. The goal was to prevent attacks from the sea and to given the fear of the return of Crusaders. The goal was to prevent attacks from the sea, given the fear of the return of the Crusaders. Crusaders were the Vikings of the Middle East. For the record, actually, Vikings might have been the Vikings of the Middle East. They got pretty far. I think they even went down some into Africa sometimes. The goal was to prevent attacks from the sea, given the fear of the... This had a long-term effect in those areas, which remained sparsely populated for centuries. The activity in that time concentrated more inland. With the 1492 expulsion of the Jews from Spain and the 1997 persecution of the Jews and Muslims by Manuel I of Portugal, many Jews moved eastward, with some deciding to settle in the Mameluke Palestine. As a consequence, the local Jewish community underwent significant rejuvenation. The influx of Sephardic Jews began under Mameluke rule in the 15th century and continued through the 16th century, especially after the Ottoman conquest. As city dwellers, the majority of Sephardic Jews preferred to settle in urban areas, mainly in Safed, but also in Jerusalem, while the Mustayarbi community, what is this? The Aramaic-speaking Jews, largely Mizrahi Jews and Maghrebi Jews. That sounds weird. Maghrebi Jews lived in the Middle East and North Africa prior to the arrival and integration of the Ladino-speaking Sephardic Jews and of the Iberian Peninsula, following their expulsion from Spain. All right. comprised the majority of the village Jews. Ottoman period, yeah. Under the Mamelukes, the area was province of Bilad al-Sham, Syria. It was conquered by Turkish Sultan 1516 to 17. 1500, like 1516 to 1517, becoming part of the province of Ottoman Syria for the next 4 centuries. First as the Damascus Eyalet, and later as the Syria Vialet. Okay, I don't know what this. Following the Tanzimat reorganization of 1864. With more favorable conditions that followed the Ottoman conquest, the immigration of Jews fleeing Catholic Europe, which had already begun under Mamluk rule, continued as soon as an influx of exiled Sephardic Jews came to dominate the Jewish community in the area. In 1558, Selim, the successor to Suleiman, whose wife Nurbanu Sultan was Jewish, he gave control over Tiberias to Dona Gracia Mendez Nasi, one of the richest women in Europe and an escapee from the Inquisition. She encouraged Jewish refugees to settle in the area and established the Hebrew printing press. Safed became a center for study of the Kabbalah and other Jewish religious studies. What is this? Is an esoteric method, discipline, and school of thought in Jewish mysticism. It forms the foundation of mystical religious interpretations within Judaism. A traditional Kabbalist is called a Mekubal. All right. Culminating with Joseph Cairo's writing the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, consulted in various legal codes in Rabbinic Judaism. It was authored in the city of Safed, in what is now Israel, by Joseph Cairo, published in Venice 2 years later. Okay. Published in 1565 in Venice, it became the near universal standard of Jewish religious law. Danya Nasi's nephew, Joseph Nasi, was made governor of Tiberias, and he encouraged Jewish settlements from Italy. In 1660, Druze power. So Druze are kind of, I don't know if they're actually like Muslim. They've kind of got their own thing going on, I think, but there would be an Arabic like ethnic group. Led to the destruction of Safed and Tiberias in the late 18th century. A local Arab sheikh, Sahir al-Umar, created a de facto independent emirate in the Galilee. Ottoman attempts to subdue the sheikh failed, but after Zahir's death, the Ottomans restored the rule in the area. In 1799, Napoleon briefly occupied the country and planned a proclamation inviting Jews to create a state. The proclamation was shelved following the defeat at Acre. Oh. All right. In 1831, I was about to say a Frenchman not finishing something. I'm sure. Okay, I got to take it easy on the French a little bit. In 1831, Muhammad Ali of Egypt, an Ottoman ruler who left the empire and tried to modernize Egypt, conquered Ottoman Syria and imposed, conscriptions leading to the Arab Revolt. In 1838, there was another Druze revolt. In 1839, the Moses Montefiore met with Mohammed Pasha in Egypt and signed an agreement to establish 100 to 200 Jewish villages in the Damascus Eyalet of the Ottoman Syria. But in 1840, the Egyptians withdrew before the deal was implemented. Oh, the Egyptians are just like the French, returning the area to the Ottoman government. In 1844, the Jews constituted the largest population group in Jerusalem. By 1896, the Jews constituted an absolute majority in Jerusalem, but the overall population in Palestine was 88% Muslim and 9% Christian. The birth of Zionism. Between 1882 and 1903, approximately 35,000 Jews moved to Palestine, known as the First Aliyah. In the Russian Empire, Jews faced growing persecution and legal restrictions. Half the world's Jews lived in the Russian Empire, where they were restricted to living in the Pale of Settlement. What is this? The western region of the Russian Empire with varying borders that existed from 1791 to 1917, which is a permanent residency, in which permanent residency by the Jews was allowed, and beyond which the Jews' residency, permanent or temporary, was mostly forbidden. Okay. Severe pogroms in the early 1800s and legal repression led to 2 million Jews emigrating from the Russian Empire. 1.5 million went to the United States. Popular destinations were also Germany, France, and the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Argentina, and Palestine. The Zionist movement began in earnest in 1882 with Leon Pinsker's pamphlet Auto-Emancipation, which argued for the creation of a Jewish national homeland as a means to avoid the violence plaguing Jewish communities in Eastern Europe. At the 1884 Katowice Conference, Russian Jews established the Bilu and Hoveo Zion, Lovers of Zion movement, with the aim of settling Palestine. In 1878, Russian Jewish immigrants established the village of Petah Tikva, the beginning of hope, followed by Rishon LeZion, first to Zion, in 1882. The existing Ashkenazi communities were concentrated in the 4 holy cities, extremely poor, and relied upon donations, halukah, from groups abroad, while the new settlements were small farming communities, but still relied upon funding by French Baron Edmond James de Rothschild, who sought to establish profitable enterprises. Many early migrants could not find work and left, but despite the problems, more settlements arose and communities grew. After the Ottoman conquest of Yemen in 1881, a large number of Yemenite Jews also immigrated to Palestine, often driven by Messianism? Huh. All right. In 1897, Theodor Herzl published Der Judenstaat. All of these things sound racist because they're in German. All right. In which he asserts that the solution to the growing anti-Semitism in Europe, the so-called Jewish question, was to establish a Jewish state. In 1897, the West Zionist Organization was founded, and the first Zionist Congress proclaimed itself to establish a home for the Jewish people in Palestine, secured under public law. The Congress chose Hatikva, the Hope, as its anthem. Between 1904 and 1940, around 40,000 Jews settled in the area known as Israel, Second Aliyah. In 1908, the World Zionist Organization set up... Why are we going like... Okay, between 1904 and 1904. Okay, that makes sense, I guess. The World Zionist Organization set up a Palestinian Bureau, also known as the Eretz Israel Office, in Jaffa, and began to adopt systemic oppression, systematic Jewish settlement policy. In 1909, residents of Jaffa bought land outside the city walls and built the first entirely Hebrew-speaking town, Ahuzat Bayit, later named Tel Aviv. Okay. In 1915 to 1916, Talat Pasha of the Young Turks. Okay, different Young Turks, I think. Different Young Turks. The Young Turks were a broad opposition movement in the late Ottoman Empire to the absolute regime of Sultan Abdul Hamid, The most powerful organization within the movement was, and most conflated, was the Committee of Union and Progress. Interesting. Forced around 1 million Armenian Christians from their homes in eastern Turkey, marching them south through Syria, and what is now known as the Armenian Genocide. The number of dead is thought to be around 700,000. Hundreds of thousands were forcibly converted to Islam. A community of survival settled in Jerusalem, one of whom developed the now iconic Armenian pottery. Interesting. Interesting. World War I. During World War I, most Jews supported the German laws because they were fighting the Russians, who were Jews supported the Germans because they were fighting the Russians, who were regarded as the Jews' main enemy. In Britain, the government sought Jewish support for the war effort for a variety of reasons, including an anti-Semitic perception of Jewish power in the Ottoman Empire, in the Ottoman Empire's Young Turks movement, which was based in Thessalonica, the most Jewish city in Europe. Okay, hold on. I'm going to go over this again. In Britain, the government sought Jewish support for the war effort for a variety of reasons, including the anti-Semitic perception of Jewish power in the Ottoman Empire's Young Turks movement, which was based in Thessalonica. I'm going to guess Britain would have been heavily involved in colonizing at this point, so they might have been involved in the Middle East, they might have had interest in that area, which was based in Thessaloniki, the most Jewish city in Europe. 40% of the 160,000 population were Jewish. The British hoped to secure American Jewish support for U.S. intervention on Britain's behalf. There was already sympathy for the aims of Zionism in British government, including the Prime Minister Lloyd George. Over 14,000 Jews were expelled by the Ottoman military commander from the Jaffa area in 1914 to 1915 due to suspicions that they were subjects of Russia, an enemy, or Zionists wishing to detach Palestine from the Ottoman Empire. An enemy, that they were subject of Russia, an enemy, or Zionists wishing to detach Palestine from the Ottoman Empire. So this was all still under the Ottoman Empire that this was all happening. And when the entire population, including Muslims, of both Jaffa and Tel Aviv, was subject to an expulsion order on April 1917, the affected Jews could not return until British conquest ended in 1918, which drove the Turks out of southern Syria. A year prior, in 1917, the British Foreign Minister Arthur Balfour sent a public letter to British Lord Rothschild, a leading member of his party and leader of the Jewish community. The letter subsequently became known as the Balfour Declaration. The Balfour Declaration was a public statement issued by the British government in 1917 during the First World War, announcing its support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, then an Ottoman region with a small minority of Jewish populations. All right. A national home for the Jewish people. The declaration provided the British government with a pretext for claiming and governing the country. Okay. New Middle Eastern boundaries were decided by an agreement between British and French bureaucrats. A Jewish legion comprised largely of Zionist volunteers organized by Zev Jabotinsky and George Trumpeldor. Joseph Trumpeldor. Sounds a little bit comical. Anyways, participated in the British invasion. It has also participated in the failed Gallipoli campaign. The Neely Zionist spy network provided the British with details of Ottoman plans and troop concentrations. The Ottoman Empire chose to ally itself with Germany when the First War began. I'm assuming this is the First World War began. Arab leaders dreamed of the freeing themselves from Ottoman rule and establishing self-government or forming an independent Arab state. Therefore, British contacted Hussein bin Ali of the Kingdom of Hejaz, Western Asia, a portion of the Arabian Peninsula, and proposed cooperation. Together, they organized the Arab Revolt that Britain supplied with a very large quantity of rifles and ammunition. In cooperation between British artillery and Arab infantry, the city of Aqaba on the Red Sea was conquered. The Arab army then continued north while Britain attacked the Ottomans from the sea. In 1917 to 1918, Jerusalem and Damascus were conquered from the Ottomans. Britain then broke off cooperation with the Arab army. It turned out that the Britain had already entered into a secret Sykes/Picot agreement. Oh, what the Harry? A secret treaty between the United Kingdom and France, with assent from Russia and Italy, to define their mutually agreed spheres of influence and control in an eventual partition of the... Okay, so they're basically partitioning up the Ottoman Empire. Interesting. That meant that only Britain and France would be allowed to administer the land conquered by the Ottoman Empire. Kind of a double-dealing crap. After pushing out the Ottomans, Palestine came under martial law. Britain, French, and Arab occupied enemy territory governed the area shortly before the armistice with the Ottomans until the propagation of the Mandate in 1920. First years, the British Mandate of Palestine included Balfour Declaration, was confirmed by the League of Nations. In 1922, it came into effect in 1923. The territory of Transjordan was also covered by the Mandate, but also under separate rules that excluded it from the Balfour Declaration. Britain signed the treaty with the United States, which did not join the League of Nations, in which the United States endorsed the terms of the Mandate, which was approved unanimously by both the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives. The Balfour Declaration was published on the 2nd of November 1917, and the Bolsheviks seized control of Russia a week later. This led to civil war in the Russian Empire. Between 1918 and 1921, a series of pogroms led to the death of at least 100,000 Jews, mainly in what is now Ukraine. The displacement as refugees of a further 600,000. This led to further migration to Palestine between 1919 and 1923. Some 40,000 Jews arrived in Palestine in what is known as the Third Aliyah. I don't know how to say that. Aliyah. Many of the Jewish immigrations of this period were socialist Zionists. How delightful! And supported the Bolsheviks. Were these the people who were oppressing them? The migrants became known as pioneers, halutzim, experienced or trained in agriculture, who established self-sustaining communes called kibbutzim? Kibbutzim? I've heard the word kibbutz. Kibbutzim. All right. Malarial marshes in the Jezreel Valley and Heifer Plains were drained and converted into agricultural use. That sounds like a job and a half. The land was bought by Jewish National Fund, a Zionist charity that collected money abroad for that purpose. After the French victory over the Arab Kingdom of Syria ended hopes of Arab independence, there were clashes between Arabs and Jews in Jerusalem. During the 1920 Nebi Musa riots in Jaffa the following year, leading to the establishment of Haganah, underground Jewish militia, a Jewish agency, was created, which issued the entry permits by the British and distributed funds donated by Jews abroad. Between 1924 and 1929, over 80,000 Jews arrived in the Fourth Aliyah, fleeing anti-Semitism and heavy tax burdens imposed on trade in Poland and Hungary. Inspired by Zionism and motivated by the closure of the United States borders by Immigration Act of 1924, which severely limited immigration from Eastern and Southern Europe. Pinyas Rutenberg, a former commissioner of St. Petersburg in Russia's pre-Bolshevik government, built the first electric generators in Palestine. In 1925, the Jewish Agency established the Hebrew University in Jerusalem and the Technion Technological University in Haifa. British authorities introduced the Palestine pound, worth 100 mils, in 1927, replacing the Egyptian pound as the unit of currency in the mandate. From 1928, the democratically elected Vaid Lummu Jewish National Council, or JNC, became the main administration institution of the Palestinian Jewish community, Yeshuv, and included non-Zionist Jews. As the Yeshuv grew, the JNC adopted more government-type function, such as education, healthcare, and security. With British permission, the Vaad Lummi raised its own taxes and ran independent services for the Jewish population. In 1929, tensions grew over Kotel, Wailing Wall, the holiest spot in the world for modern Judaism. The Wailing Wall is an ancient retaining wall of the built-up hill known to the Jews and Christians as Temple Mount. So I assume for quite a while the Jews weren't allowed on the Temple Mount. So the Wailing Wall became like the closest thing to it, I guess, maybe, sort of. So obviously the Dome of the Rock is still up there. And the other mosque, or I guess, I don't know, the Dome of the Rock and the other mosque the same thing, or is it different buildings or different compounds or something? Anyways, its most famous section, known as the same name, often shortened by the Jews as the Kotel or Kosel, known as the West or the Wailing Wall. Alright, the holy spot, which was the narrow alleyway where the British banned Jews from using chairs or curtain. What the Harry? Many of the worshippers were elderly and needed seats. They also wanted to separate women from men. The Mufti of Jerusalem said it was Muslim property and deliberately had cattle driven through the alleyway. He alleged that the Jews were seeking control of the Temple Mount. Okay, so yeah, Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. Those are the ones up there. Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. This provided a spark for August 1929 Palestinian riots. The main victims were the non-Zionist ancient Jewish community at Hebron, who were massacred. The riots led to right-wing Zionists establishing their own militia in 1931, the Ergun Tzvai Leumi, national military organization known as the Hebrew by its acronym Etzel, which was committed to a more aggressive policy towards the Arab population. During the interwar period, the perception grew that there was an irreconcilable tension between the two mandatory functions. Factions? Is it supposed to be functions? Of providing for a Jewish homeland in Palestine and the goal of preparing the country for self-determination. The British rejected the principle of majority rule or any other measure that would give the Arab population, who formed the majority of the population, control over Palestinian territory. Between 1929 and 1938, 250,000 Jews arrived in Palestine, fifth Aliyah. In 1932, the Jewish Agency and the Nazis negotiated the Havara transfer agreement, under which 50,000 German Jews would be transferred to Palestine. The Jews' positions were confiscated and returned to Nazis, allowed the Havara organization to purchase 14 million pounds worth of German goods for the export to Palestine and use it to compensate the immigrants. Although many Jews wanted to leave Nazi Germany, the Nazis prevented Jews from taking any money and restricted them to two suitcases so few could pay British entry tax. The agreement was controversial, and labor Zionist leaders who negotiated the agreement, Haim Arab something, was assassinated in Tel Aviv in 1933. The assassination was used by British to create a tension between Zionist left and the Zionist right. Arlo Sorov had been a boyfriend of Magda Richel some years before she married Joseph Goebbels. Okay. It's an interesting bit of intelligence history. There had been speculation that he was assassinated by the Nazis, who hid the connection, but there is no evidence for it. Between 1933 and 1936, 174,000 arrived despite large sums of British demands for immigration. The Jews had to prove they had £1,000 for families with capital equivalents to 85,000 in 2023. Holy crap. You have to have, oh, for the love. £500 if they had professionals and £250 if they were skilled laborers. Okay. Jewish immigration and Nazi propaganda contributed to the large-scale 1936 and 1939 Arab revolt in Palestine. A large Jewish immigration and Nazi propaganda, a large nationalist uprising directed at ending British rule. The head of the Jewish agency, Ben Gurion, responded to the Arab revolt with a policy of havlaga, self-restraint, and refusal to be provoked by Arab attacks in order to prevent polarization. The Etzel group broke off the Haganah in opposition to this policy. British responses to the revolt with the Peel Commission, 1936 to 19... Public inquiry recommended that an exclusively Jewish territory be created in the Galilee and western coast, including the population transfer of 225,000 Arabs, the rest becoming an exclusively Arab area. The two main Jewish leaders, Chaim Weizmann and David Ben Gurion, had convinced the Zionist Congress to approve equivocally the Peel recommendations as the basis for more negotiations. The plan was rejected outright by the Palestinian Arab leadership, and they renewed the revolt, which caused the British to abandon the plan as unworkable. Testifying before the Peel Commission, Weizmann said, "There are in Europe 6 million people for whom the world is divided into places where they cannot live and places where they cannot enter." In 1938, the U.S. called an international conference to address the question of the vast number of Jews trying to escape Europe. Britain made its attendance contingent upon Palestine being kept out of the discussion. No Jewish representatives were invited. Okay. The Nazis proposed their own solution. The Jews of Europe be shipped to Madagascar. Oh, for the love. Okay, that's the Madagascar plan. That's something. The agreement proved fruitless, and Jews were stuck in Europe. With millions of Jews trying to leave Europe and every country closed to Jewish migration, British decided to close Palestine. Of course, as one does. The White Paper of 1939 recommended that independent Palestine, governed jointly by Arab and Jews, be established within 10 years. The White Paper agreed to allow 75,000 Jewish immigrants into Palestine over the period of 1940 to 44, after which migration would require Arab approval. Both Arab and Jewish leaders rejected the White Paper. In March of 1940, the British High Commissioner of Palestine issued an edict banning Jews from purchasing land in 95% of Palestine. Okay. Jews now resorted to illegal immigration. I bet Hayapa was not something often organized by the Mossad and the oh, for the love, these are some weird names. Alright, with no outside help and no countries ready to admit them. Very few Jews managed to escape Europe between 1939 and 1945. Those caught by the British were mostly imprisoned in Mauritius. There's an island off of Africa. Interesting. During the Second World War, the Jewish Agency worked to establish a Jewish army that would fight alongside British forces. Churchill supported the plan, but British military and government opposition led to its rejection. The British demanded a number of Jewish recruits match the number of Arab recruits. In June 1940, Italy declared war on British Commonwealth and sided with Germany. Within months, Italian planes bombed Tel Aviv and Haifa, inflicting multiple casualties. In May 1941, Palamark was established to defend Yishuv against the planned Axis invasion through North Africa. British refusal to provide arms to the Jews, even when Rommel's forces were advancing through Egypt in June 1942, intended on occupying Palestine, and the 1939 White Paper led to the emergence of Zionist leadership in Palestine that believed conflict with Britain was inevitable. Despite this, the Jewish Agency called on Palestine Jewish youth to volunteer for the British Army. 30,000 Palestinian Jews and 12,000 Palestinian Arabs enlisted in the British Army forces during the war. In June 1944, the British agreed to create a Jewish brigade. The British agreed to create a Jewish brigade that would fight in Italy. Approximately 1.5 million Jews around the world served in every branch of the Allied armies, mainly in Soviet and U.S. armies. Okay, so they were in the Soviets as well. All right. 200,000 Jews died serving in the Soviet army alone. A small number, about 200 activists dedicated to resisting British administration in Palestine, broke away from Etzel, which advocated support for Britain during the war, and formed Lehi. It's led by... In 1942, the USR released the revisionist Zionist leader, Begin from Gulag. He went to Palestine, taking command of the Etzel organization with a policy of increased conflict against British. At about the same time, Yitzhak Shamir escaped from the camp in Eritrea, where the British were holding Lehi activists without trial, taking command of the Lehi Sterngang. The Jews in Middle East were also affected by the war. Most of North Africa came under Nazi control, and many Jews were used as slaves. In 1941, pro-Axis coup in Iraq was accompanied by massacres of Jews. Okay, Jewish Agency put together plans for the last stand in the event of Rommel invading Palestine. The Nazis planned to exterminate Palestine's Jews. Between 1939 and 45, the Nazis, aided by local forces, led systematic efforts to kill every person of Jewish extraction in Europe. The Holocaust caused the deaths of approximately 6 million Jews. A quarter of those were killed were children. The Polish and German Jewish communities, which played an important role in defining the pre-1945 Jewish world, mostly ceased to exist. In the United States and Palestine, Jews of European origin became disconnected from their families and roots. As the Holocaust mainly affected Ashkenazi Jews, Sephardic and Mizrahi Jews, who'd been a minority, became a much more significant factor in the Jewish world. Those Jews who survived in Central Europe were displaced persons, refugees, and Anglo-American Committee of Inquiry established an examination of the Palestine issue, surveyed their ambitions, and found that over 95 wanted to migrate to Palestine. 95% wanted to migrate to Palestine. In the Zionist movement, the moderate pro-British and British citizen, Weizmann, whose son died flying in the RAF, was undermined by British anti-Zionist policies. Leadership of the movement passed to the Jewish Agency of Palestine, now led by the anti-British Socialist Zionist Party, Mapai, led by David Ben-Gurion. Let me see what time it is. Okay, I gotta get this done here. I'm probably gonna finish with the Second World War here and leave it at that. The illegal migration became the main form of Jewish entry into Palestine. Across Europe, Brika Flight, an organization of former partisans and ghetto fighters. What are partisans? Were fighters in irregular military groups participating in the Jewish resistance movement against Nazi Germany and in its collaborators during World War II. Smuggled Holocaust survivors from Eastern Europe to the Mediterranean ports. There were small boats tried to breach the British blockades of Palestine. Meanwhile, Jews from Arab countries began moving into Palestine overland, despite British efforts to curb immigration. During the 14 years of the Ali Bet, over 100,000 Jews entered Palestine. By the end of World War II, the Jewish population of Palestine had increased to 33% of the total population. In an effort to win independence, Zionists now waged guerrilla war against the British. The main underground Jewish militia, the Haganah, formed the alliance called the Jewish Resistance Movement. Okay, where does this end? All right, let's read down to there. With Etzel and Sterngang to fight British. In June 1946, following an instance of Jewish sabotage such as the Night of Bridges, the British launched Operation Agatha, arresting 2,700 Jews, including the leadership of the Jewish agencies whose headquarters were raided. Those arrested were held without trial. On the 4th of July, 1946, a massive pogrom in Poland led to a wave of Holocaust survivors fleeing to Europe for Palestine. 3 weeks later, Ergun bombed the British military headquarters. Man, those guys cannot catch a break. Ergun bombed the British military headquarters of King David Hotel in Jerusalem, killing 91 people. In the days following the bombing, Tel Aviv was placed under curfew, and over 120,000 Jews, nearly 20% of the Jewish population of Palestine, were questioned by the police. In the U.S., Congress criticized the British handling of the situation and considered delaying loans that were vital to British post-war recovery. The alliance between Haganah and the Etzel was dissolved after the King David bombing. Between 1945 and 1948, 100,000 to 120,000 Jews left Poland. Their departure was largely organized by Zionist activists under the umbrella of the semi-clandestine organization Beriha Flight. Beriha is also responsible for the organized emigration of Jews from Romania, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and Yugoslavia, totaling 250,000, including Poland, Holocaust survivors. The British imprisoned the Jews trying to enter Palestine, and the Al-Atlit detainee camp and Cyprus internment camps. Those were mainly Holocaust survivors, including large numbers of children and orphans, in response to Cypriot attack. Fears that Jews would never leave, and because the 75,000 quota established by the 1939 White Paper had never been filled, the British allowed the refugees to enter Palestine at a rate of 750 per month. All right. United States partition plan. I guess that was the whole thing. Okay, I think that's about all we're going to do. All right, so there is a not very brief history of Israel as to the, wars / treaties / wars / treaties / wars that followed, all the partitioning and Gaza Strip. I guess you're going to have to read that for yourself. Have fun with that.